should know. I have never really liked you at all. I cannot hide it anymore. I've been thinking about the future, trying to forget about the past. So many ways that I could change for the better. Don't
This is a true crime discussions channel. We speculate. This is all just speculation. Because it's true crime, is for mature audiences only. There will be no children allowed, no exceptions. Everything on this channel falls under fair use. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. It's free. Hey, y'all. Hold on. I'm like, wait, let me get situated. We're at 7:07. It's so good to see y'all. I'm so glad y'all are here. Oh my God. Brian Kohburger took a plea deal last night. This, as I'm getting situated, news is insane to me, and I don't quite understand why he did it. I don't understand. Let me say hey to y'all. Good to see you. Abellis, Jenny Jen, Bad Girl, Smoky Mountain Mermaid. Good to see you. Kara's back. Good to see you. Hannah UK. Good to see you. Cracker Jacks is here. Good to see you. I saw Connie came in and Tom came in. Good to see you. Um, I saw that Cindy was here. Thank you so much for that, Cindy. And Michael Green Chili Chicken. Good to see y'all. Michael Green Chili Chicken. Cindy, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. If you guys were gifted from Cindy and you are aware you were gifted, please tell Cindy thank you. Thank you so very much, Cindy. And I will grab the crazy train and pick y'all up on the way to Speculation Station. Thank y'all for being here. Y'all are amazing. Thank you again, Cindy. That was awesome. Lisa Lynn, Anders, One Sunny Day. Good to see y'all. Laura. Laura from Kissimmee, Florida. Good to meet you. Good to see you. Yes, so please hit the thumbs up. Please hit the thumbs up. I commented at the beginning of the stream and said, hey, y'all, thank you for being here today. I went to the court website and Stern's hearing was rescheduled for tomorrow. So then I called the local news station just to check because I was like, maybe his attorneys did that so that the news wouldn't be there. And they said, nope, the only thing they have for Stearns will be happening tomorrow. So I was like, okay, then it's definitely going to be tomorrow that we do the Stearns hearing. So I do have that live scheduled. We will be covering it live. Oh, yeah, I do because I was just reading that. I think it's because of the DoorDash driver. I find it too big of a coincidence that the news broke of the driver and then he takes the deal. But she was not that credible, y'all. Like, I'm like, really? Like, really, the DoorDash driver? Like, because I'm not trying to be mean. Bless her beautiful little heart. Hey, Miss King of Anything, Anders, Dainty Dane. I mean, and Sarah, good to see you. I mean, bless her little heart, but like, she wasn't that credible. I didn't, I am stuttering for some reason. I didn't think she was that credible, honestly. And if I'm feeling that way, there's other people out there that are feeling that way too. Dainty Dane said there's one channel that claims BK didn't do it or didn't do it alone and also talks regular trash about some of the families. Anyhow, it was nice to see her look like she was slapped in the mouth. Lord have mercy. Thank you for being here, sweetheart. I'm surprised he took the plea deal. Narcissists like him usually thrive on the attention of a trial. Absolutely. The defense ran out of operations. I've heard that. Speaking of that, I'm okay. How are you feeling, sweetheart? Still, it must have been the straw that tipped it over. Maybe. Maybe. I agree that she didn't seem that credible, but she must have ID'd his car perfectly. Who knows? And maybe he remembers seeing her and freaked out. There's definitely more to this than what we are being told. With this sudden guilty plea, I feel like there's more to this case. I do too, for sure. It's good to see you, Bazard. We were at Keogh's last night. Actually, I'll go ahead and pull up. YouTube. Nope. Yep. Or on my channel. But I was at Hio's last night and we were discussing this. So I'm going to grab that link. I was on there. I came up later in the stream with her and True Crime Addict 8, and she hit 1,000 subscribers last night. So she was really, really happy about that and over the moon. So this is for Hio. Where is it? There it is. That is for you, my love, for hitting 1,000 subscribers. I'm so proud of her and happy for her. Yay, Hio. Okay. Norma, good to see you. Sarah said, I think the DoorDash driver may have witnessed him, but she would have been torn up by the defense. She has a lot of trauma, and I think being on the stand would have been worse for her. I think so too. That's why I'm like, why did he do this? Like, it was easy to see. I'm happy for her too. But it was easy to see that that DoorDash driver could easily be torn up. So I really don't think that's what it is. Hey, Queen Olive. Didn't the defense say there's too much evidence for us to go through? Do you think that's a reason, though, for them to like completely throw out one of the biggest cases of their career and have him take a plea? So we're going to talk about it. Maybe y'all can help me kind of understand. You think they're hiding something? That was my understanding, that they needed more time, and the judge said no. They did petition for more time and were told no by the judge. But is that a reason to like throw the biggest case of your career out the window? I don't know. We're going to go through some of these videos and see not only what the news is saying about this new turn of events, but also what some of the parents are saying, because the parents are not happy. They didn't want this plea deal to go through, and I don't blame them. I think it's because it takes the death penalty off the table. And if, those were my kids, I would want to watch him take his last breath. I'm sorry, that might sound inhumane or mean, but like, no, you took my child's life. I'm going to, an eye for an eye, I'm going to watch you take your last breath. I would be devastated to learn that this person who killed not one, not two, not three, but 4 young adults was going to get life in prison to sit there and eat his root beer barrels and have his commissary and his hot meal once a week and go back and forth to this, that, and the third and die of old age. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Hey, Shraddha. Yeah, they are, from what I understand. I hope he stands up and confesses and tells us how he got in the house and why. Hey, Lorianne. I think so. We will know more tomorrow. There is a hearing for that. I don't know if I'll be able to cover it because it usually falls too late in the evening for me to cover it. But I know that True Crime Addict 8 or Hio will be covering that, and I will be watching. And but he's gonna have to talk about something for the plea deal, right? Like, he's gonna have to admit to some things. He's gonna have to talk about a little bit. I don't know if they're gonna go through all the trial. I wanted to see the evidence that they had presented. Cara said, didn't the prosecution give them something like 300 terabytes of information? Probably. Hey, occasionally classy. I wonder if his team got into some of the discovery and knew they had no case. Auntie said they hadn't gotten through it. Maybe they all got to something they didn't know the DA had. Maybe that's an interesting theory, and that makes sense. Hey, Edith. Well, yeah, he pled guilty because he's guilty. I agree with that. But what made him finally plead guilty 6 weeks before trial, I wonder? Okay. So we'll start with this one. This is the oldest one from 17 hours ago. This is going to be Vinnie Politan on Court TV. So let's watch it and talk about it.
I'm Vinnie Politan. We begin this program this hour with big breaking news in the biggest case on our docket here at Court TV, the biggest true crime case and trial in the nation. The case involving the 4 University of Idaho students who were brutally murdered. The suspect in that case has been offered and accepted a plea deal. Do you hear me? A plea deal for the killer of Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana, the 4 students from the University of Idaho. This is how it all went down. Apparently, the prosecutor sent a letter today to the families of the victims, indicating that the suspect, the now soon-to-be admitted killer, is going to accept a deal where he will plead guilty to all counts, agree to a sentence of 4 consecutive life sentences, 1 for each of the victims, will waive his right to any appeal, bringing finality to the case and to the conviction. And all this is now apparently scheduled to go down on July 2nd.
So that gave them today to prepare. Carr said his life without the possibility of parole sentence is going to be his own personal hell. He has an issue with hygiene, cleanliness, and extreme veganism. That's true. So again, I mean, even looking at that, what made him just skip the trial and admit to it? I mean, there was people out here that believed he was innocent, and he knew that. Like the DoorDash driver, I'm sorry. Again, like I said, bless her perfect little heart, but that girl has been through some damn things, and she would have got tore up on the stand. It's not enough for him to just say after everything, forget it all. I'm guilty. I'll take the life sentences. That's it. That's all. Like after all this time, knowing that what Carr just said, like it doesn't make sense to me. He won't be able to clean himself. He's going to be living in filth and eat his vegan food that was cooked on pots and pans that never touched animal products. Right. Yeah, that's going to be his own personal hell, and he deserves it, in my opinion. Hey, Tony and Joe, if he's just copying to what he did, he doesn't need to give any testimony about his actions, really. I know, and I want him to. Hey, Lily Gal. Originally from Scotland. I would love to hear your accent. I mean, he is. I haven't been to prison, but I've been to jail. And yeah, if you're extremely vegan and clean, you ain't gonna be happy. Cracker said, I knew he was cooked and he don't like the fire squad. I feel it's that simple. You think so? I might be making too much of it. Hey, Kathleen, good to see you.
Now, obviously, this is going to cause a lot of reactions. We have seen one already from the family of Kelly Gonzalez. I want to put that up on the screen because this is where I am going to begin this discussion tonight of this breaking news.
So Hannah pointed out something else we talked about last night. He could still change his mind Wednesday, and it's rare, but the judge could refuse the plea deal. He could, and the judge absolutely could, but will the judge do that? The judge is going to know the parents are very upset about this. But he's going to look at it as, I'm not having to take them through trial. We're not having to lay out all the evidence of everything that happened. And eventually the parents will understand that it's better for them in the end not to have to see all that and go through all that. And they're just going to have to live with the fact that he is going to be in prison for the rest of his life instead of the possibility of seeing him be put to death. It wouldn't be good enough for me. But I don't see the judge doing that. However, it is possible. The whole changing his mind Wednesday, I found that interesting. And then somebody said they would need, I think it was True Crime Addict 8. If he went up there and said he changes his mind Wednesday, then they would have to give more time for them to prepare for trial, from my understanding, or it's very possible that they would, which would give them what they had asked for in the beginning, which was a continuance. So could it all just be like a play at trying to get more time? I don't know, but it seems really drastic if it is. I think they have way too much evidence on him, and he wasn't as slick as he thought he was. He thought he was going to be like this unknown serial killer that people speculate for decades to come. That it's very possible. Bazard said, even if he got the death penalty in Idaho, it's been said it takes 20 to 30 years for some of these death penalty sentences to go through. Why this latest shocker is highly strange, to say the least. Yeah, it does take a while anywhere because you have to go through appeals processes and all of that. They have to exhaust all their appeals before they're actually put to death. He thought he was going to be a teacher by day and a demon by night. I agree with that. I don't think the plea deal should have been allowed in this trial, in my opinion. I don't either. Like, I get why the parents are upset, and I would be too. It's going to be if the judge changes his mind after he's pled guilty. The judge is effectively stating death by firing squad, said Crackerjack. So is it pretty much set in stone that if he gets the death penalty, it'll be by firing squad? Because that would change things. News Nation did an interview. Yep, I've got it on the playlist, Lily Gal, and thank you for that. I really appreciate it. He won't refuse it. Public safety is the primary concern, so risking a botched trial isn't acceptable. I agree. His defense approach to prosecutor, from what I know, it's unverified, but defense went to prosecution for the deal. Well, yeah, I think they have to go there to get the plea deal and talk to them, and they have to agree on it, if I'm not mistaken. I think this was his plan. He thought it would be the perfect crime. Yeah. I can't remember where I read it, but allegedly he's got people waiting for him in prison. Oh, I'm sure that they do. Plea deal avoids the firing squad. So maybe that's it.
It's true. We are beyond furious at the state of Idaho. They have failed us. Please give us some time. This was very unexpected. We appreciate all your love and support. Let's keep that up there for a second so everyone can read it. What is important here? What is significant? First of all, they are beyond furious. They wanted this to go all the way through to the death penalty.
And I get it. Like, I would want to see if you hurt my child or somebody I love that way, thought you were going to be this criminal mastermind, took all the classes in school, teacher's assistant, by God, and are idolizing the likes of Ted Bundy, and want to be just like him. From what I heard earlier on another channel, he said the same thing that John Wayne Gacy said, which I believe was, "Did you arrest anybody else?" I mean, these are all problematic for me to know that his intention was to be a serial killer, and my child or loved one was targeted. I would want to be the one firing the gun, honestly. So I get it. And I don't know that they'll ever feel vindicated. Shraddha said, I have a hard time reconciling this type of unaliving behavior and extreme veganism. I think he's an addicted person. And I was going to say to that, I think that he had a heroin addiction. I thought. Now, that could be complete misinformation. I'm not sure, but I thought I read somewhere at one point he was addicted to heroin or something. Removing the death penalty happens all the time. Yeah. I feel the family's grief turned to revenge, and now they don't even get that, and it ended as abruptly as their child's lives. That's very true and sad, Dainty. Thank you, Cindy, for reminding us that it is It is Canada Day. Happy Canada Day. I hope y'all have a wonderful Canada Day. Supposedly, his case would have been prime reason to use the firing squad due to issues with lethal injections in Idaho. Now, with this shocker, it's almost as if the death would face the bullet. Maybe. All right, I'm going to stop. I'm going to highlight comments. I feel like I'm reading too many, and we're going to listen.
Number one. Also, this was very unexpected. That tells you how out of the loop the victims' families were in this decision. Now,
could you imagine, like, saying that you don't want them to offer him this plea deal and then coming to find out through a letter that he was given the plea deal anyway, even though you protested and said, absolutely not, do not give him that plea deal, and they went behind your back and did it anyway? I mean, I would be devastated too. And I'm not condoning him for that. I've told y'all, I've been very honest about my past. I had a heroin problem at one point, but the reason we were pointing that out was because of the addiction to extreme veganism and just his behavior in general. He has a very addictive personality and seems uptight and things like that. Possible Asperger's, or not Asperger's anymore, autism, but an aspect of Asperger's and how he's going to fare in jail was the reason we were talking about that.
By law, it is the people of the state versus the defendant. The families, the victims' families are not a party to the case, but they have some rights. They should have a lot more rights, but they don't. But now we're learning that in a state like Idaho, which permits the death penalty, who is the death penalty for? It's for the worst of the worst. Who is this guy? A psychotic mass murderer? And he's the one who's going to get a deal. He's the one getting the deal tonight. With, at a minimum, the Gonzalez family furious. I don't know about the other families. They may not want to go through a trial. But the law is the law. The law in Idaho is that the worst of the worst is for the death penalty. If not this guy, then who?
I mean, I'm agreeing with him on this.
What is it there for?
Right.
Why does Idaho even have it? You might as well get rid of it tonight. If someone like this is not the one you're going to attempt to give the death penalty to, what do you have it for then? To make your jobs easier?
Yeah, he better be careful. Queen Olive said they did discuss it with the families, and you are right. Hey, AM, you are right, but the families didn't agree, or at least not all of them. And then to find out that you adamantly you protested the plea deal, and then they went through and did it anyway, like, I would be absolutely devastated. I would be pissed, just like they are. Really. Well, see, Shanann Watts, I mean, that was their son-in-law. I mean, you know, what he did was horrendous, but at one point in time, they did care for him and love him, and he was the father of their grandchildren that he later killed. So I get it with that one. With this one, they have no ties to him whatsoever. Hey, content, prison will definitely not be pleasant for him. Wouldn't surprise me if he unalive it. He might. Ethan's family is okay with it being over. That's good. At least somebody is.
Yeah, it's a tough trial. Yeah, it'll be 3 months. It'll be brutal. There's a lot of preparation. Everything is at stake. Nothing is a gimme. Nothing is a layup. But that's your job. That's what you're elected, and that's what you're hired to do the cases that aren't easy. And the death penalty should not be used merely as a way to make jobs easier for prosecutors. Whether it's the prosecutors at the trial or the ones who have to fight the appeals, it doesn't matter. It's your job.
I think he might be approaching this wrong if I'm giving my personal opinion. Joe said the only physical evidence is that knife sheath. That's the only physical evidence that we know of. There's a gag order, or there was. So what is there that we don't know about? And again, like people have pointed out, is that the reason why he took the death penalty? I mean, the plea deal to take the death penalty off the table, because they saw something that we haven't been privy to see yet. That's possible as well. It's just weird to me that the DoorDash driver girl comes out and then he takes the plea deal. It's like, I don't get it. She wasn't credible enough. It would be different if the girl was like getting her PhD in psychology and you know, trying to pay for college by doing DoorDash at night. That poor child had seen some things and was dealing with a lot of trauma, which again, I'm not trying to condone her for that. My heart goes out to her, but she's like would not have been a good witness on the stand, basically. Under her nail, and the DNA under Kaylee's nails. I didn't know that. So that's interesting. I wonder what that was, and if they tied it back to him. This is crazy. After sleeping on it, I think for the state, it's probably good that they have a way to keep him in custody. I don't love the decision personally, but I get it. Look at the Kohburgers, right? They're saying it doesn't mean he did it. Wow. Well, you know, they would. I mean, to be fair, I think Richard Allen is innocent. And even if Richard Allen took a deal like this, I might be like, it doesn't mean he did it. So I'm going to be fair.
And who is this defendant? Why does he, by the way, why was this case easy for prosecutors to prosecute? Relatively easy. How did they catch this guy? The DNA from the knife sheath, right? Now, how was that knife sheath left behind? Why? Under what circumstances? What do we know? Well, we know Kaylee Gonzalez fought back. My guess is likely in that struggle, the knife sheath somehow ended up on the bed. She fought. She fought harder than prosecutors are willing to fight for justice in this case. And again, you don't have to be for or against the death penalty. That's irrelevant. Your thoughts about the death penalty are irrelevant. It's the law.
Boy, he is fired up. He's going to get so many people fired up. I thought about changing it. I don't know. I mean, but it's true. I mean, but at the same time, it's not like he's not going to do any time and he's going to walk away scot-free. He is doing the rest of his life in prison. So, I mean, it's not all a loss. Do you? I think so too. I hope that they get that case taken care of. They have more than enough evidence against him that we knew of, and probably more. I agree. Yep. Thank you for dropping that trigger warning, Jenny. His alibi was pretty shit. My phone dinged in the area because I was going to look at the stars alone at 4 a.m. in winter. Right. Hey, hatchling, those plea deals are offered too cheaply. I agree with that. It's nice to see you.
It's the law in Idaho. But the question tonight is, who is it for if it's not for this guy? And it's not for Kaylee Gonzalez and her family. All right. This hour, we've got a lot of people who are going to come in who have been part of our coverage of this case for years now. Joining us right now, Court TV's Senior Director of Courtroom Coverage, Grace Wong, who, by the way, today attended a hearing on this case in Pennsylvania. Also with us, forensic death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan. He's the host of the Body Bags podcast.
Now, I'm going to start. I'm going to start by listening to them. I try not to do too much from them because sometimes it gets a little boring, but I want to see if they have any thoughts on why now.
And retired police commander Mike King, also the host of Profiling Evil, the podcast. Evil, of course. Grace, what happened here?
Well, the defense had subpoenaed a number of witnesses for what would have been their mitigation phase. If he had been convicted and convicted of the top count, he would have been death eligible. So the defense was preparing a mitigation case with these witnesses, even though it's not clear as to what exactly they would contribute. But we heard from a number of them because they objected to being called as witnesses in his case, in his trial. And the judge had to take testimony from them because he had to determine whether, that
I apologize. I swallowed some of my drink wrong and I was trying to mute before y'all heard me. Jeez. Oh, goodness. Bazard said another question that many will still want to know is the time span with the roomies and the friends that came over. Blood was all over the place, yet on the phone call, someone is passed out. That's another good point. That stuff's always been weird for me. And is that something that the parents aren't taking into consideration, the actions of the people who were left there? Because it does look questionable. I mean, we even questioned it.
They would be material to the defense case, and B, whether the hardship that they claim to have would be undue. That ultimately these witnesses said that they did not want to be associated with the case and they feared the fallout for being associated with Brian Kohburger. And they didn't feel that they had that much more to add than what they had already told law enforcement.
So let me ask you, Grace. So is this impacting this decision, do you think? Is there a connection between what happened in Pennsylvania today and how this all is going down now?
Well, that's an interesting question. It is a coincidence that we heard from witnesses today who said that they did not want to testify in Kohburger's case. It's not for certain, but certainly, the mitigation part of it should be easy. I mean, if you call on people that want to try to save his life, and these are people that were connected to him, to his past, when when he was not an adult, and they just didn't want to testify for a number of reasons, mainly because they feared the fallout from this case.
So is there any way that prosecutors could interpret that, oh my goodness, this is going to be an issue and this case is never going to go away?
I mean, right. I'm with Vinny. Like, what I want to know what made him take the plea deal right now, like in this moment.
If people are not even willing to testify for the defendant, that it's not worth going after a death penalty in a case like this? Could that in any way possibly be a reason behind this?
Hey, Cat's Eye, good to see you.
Well, they had the evidence. I mean, really, this is a question for the prosecutors. They had.
They have the evidence to prove the case. I'm wondering why they're doing this tonight. Why they're throwing in the towel and giving this guy a plea. It's a plea deal. You are giving something to the defendant, and he's waiving his right to appeal. And I was just wondering if all the issues that the defense is having and people not willing to come forward, prosecutors are thinking down the road that somehow, some way, some defense attorney is going to turn this into an issue and get something overturned, and then we'll have to do it again and again and again. That's what I'm wondering.
Jenna's Gypsy, good to see you. Oh, wow, Cracker. That's so sad when children just stop talking because of trauma like that. You think so? The survivors are irrelevant to the prosecution? You think so? I mean, they're the only eyewitness accounts, though, so I think I concur and think that their testimony would be very important.
Joseph Scott Morgan, your reaction tonight to what has gone down today, which is, we're shocked, but the Gonzalez family was not expecting this.
Real quick, Dr. Ivana said, I pulled over to say he did it now to regain control of the narrative. Now, why the prosecution did it could be many things. And I mean, that's a possible speculation too, yeah. He probably accepted the evidence was compelling and didn't want to drag his family through it. That's a possible speculation too. Joe thinks that Vinny needs a gummy. I know this is a separate case, but this case now will make the Stearns case interesting since will he do this too or take it all the way to the end? That's a good question. He's waiving appeal too. Don't forget, that means he won't be able to get out later due to legal issues. So what is making him do it? Bushy eyebrows is important. They fear another innocence fraud campaign. You think so? I'm worried. If Stearns takes a damn deal, I'm going to lose my shit.
No, they weren't. And I get the impression that they were not duly informed. At least, they're saying that they need time to digest this. And I think that that's certainly an understatement. You begin to think about this, everything that they've been through since November of 2022. We might think we've been through some things. There's nothing that we can say or do that would ever compare to what these family members have gone through. And, the waters are troubled now. They have been stirred and stirred and stirred over these past few months, can I say weeks perhaps, particularly with things that have arisen in the media. I'm just, my big question, I think, at the end of the day is what suddenly has changed to create this new tenor with this case moving forward? Because, look, if the family, it's one thing for the state to be satisfied with it. And you made a great point, Vin, because this is the state of Idaho versus Kohburger. It's not the families. And,
And that's important. I heard that a few minutes ago or earlier this morning. It is, in fact, the state of Idaho versus Kohburger, not the families. So I guess at the end of the day, it was never completely about the family's decision and how they felt about it, unfortunately. Like I think somebody said right here, Hatchling said the victim's family is always last priority, it would seem. Unfortunately, yeah. Plea deals should not be the default. I agree with that.
We hear prosecutors prattle on about, representing the victims and the families and all that. And maybe they are, I don't know, but it's I think that for many, it's going to be less than a satisfying outcome. Many people might retreat to the point where they're going to say, well, at least we know that he's going to be put away. If everything we're hearing is accurate, and I don't really have any doubt about that, but it is rather dissatisfying. But, my opinion really doesn't matter here. It's the state of Idaho. What could they have proved in this case? Hopefully we're going to find out more. And I got to tell you, Ben, I'm hoping that we're going to find out more from.
Now, if we look at just this picture of him with the hoodie on, the infamous hoodie picture, I mean, if he had a mask on, them eyebrows do look pretty daggum bushy. And them eyes look pretty evil. Soulless. Some crimes should not get a plea deal. Yeah, they should. And I think, Kathleen, that they're going to be able to give victim impact statements, but at the end of the day, it's not a life for a life.
Him, if
Or
this
four.
moves forward in a reasonable manner. Are they going to have him stand before the court and deliver? I mean, allocute. We got that with BTK. Boy, we missed it by a mile with Chris Watts. I think a lot of people were salivating over that, wanting to hear exactly what happened. I'm hoping that we're going to hear what happened if this is what we're left with.
Well, an allocution, it should be part of every guilty plea. When I was a prosecutor in New Jersey, obviously never had a case like this. I had less serious cases where defendants had to tell the judge exactly what they did to create a factual basis so the guilty plea could in fact be accepted. But covering all the different jurisdictions across the country, Grace, you and I have been doing it for years. We know different judges, different states, they all do it differently on these guilty pleas. Let me just ask you, Grace, on that front, do you expect that he'll have to allocute and actually say what he did at his guilty plea, or just say, yeah, I'm guilty of what I'm charged with?
Well, I hope the deal would include complete and total allocution. There's so many questions, and this case has been shrouded in mystery and secrecy from the very beginning. All these motions have been filed under seal. Witness lists are under seal. Even the documents that do get released are redacted heavily. And, a trial is a search for the truth under the rules of evidence. And no matter, even if he does allocute, there's so many questions that are still remain. And I hope that this deal requires him to explain why, right? That's the big question. Why did he target these four students? Why, what was there any there was no provocation. So why choose these four? And I mean, I can't help but think that one of that maybe a couple of the witnesses, that a couple of the victims, he might have killed because they were witnesses to what he had done to one or the other, and that would have been an aggravating factor for the death penalty.
I have all these questions too. I hope he's going to have to allocate why he did all this. One sunny day said, could the family sue civilly? The plea makes him admittedly guilty. Possibly, but what are they going to get from it unless they take it from his parents or something? In my opinion, he's going to try to one-up Bundy, let the families think they're getting justice, take it back, and then put them through the torment of having to see the pictures and sit through all the horrible things that he's done, and possibly even bring up anything to discredit the victims and make them look bad. That's if he accepts and then retracts. And see, that's my thing. Like, you got a knife sheath, and we don't have all the evidence, right? There might be some damning evidence, but you've got a knife sheath, you've got the other roommate saying they saw somebody with bushy eyebrows texting each other, and then having somebody else call 911 saying somebody's passed out like 8 or 9 hours later. You have the DoorDash driver who's not credible. Like, all of those things, you have people think that he's innocent. All of those things, I mean, he had a chance to get off of on this. So why did he all of a sudden plead guilty? Like, I don't get it. That's my issue. Thank you for sharing that. Joe Neal said, I think he needs to be wrapped up. I think this needs to be wrapped up in Kohburger sent away, never to be seen again. He can't make any more of a star than he is. He is a star now. I heard that it could be made where he has to pay the family's restitution, and that'll come out of his jail fund. I can't say how I'll respond or how my brain will work and try to disbelieve the fact that something very bad has happened. The brain goes into self-preservation to make sense of the situation. And I get that. I'm not trying to blame them. I'm just saying, from the point of view of what we have. So Born to Be Wild, it is a fact. They came out last night and said it through the news stations broke it. I put out a short last night where the news stations had broke it 13 minutes earlier. So it is a fact, but we don't know the stipulations of the plea deal yet, and we won't know that until tomorrow. You get his statement in court. That's what they get from it. No money, but a confession. Interesting. It's not been accepted by the judge, and we don't know the stipulations. Consequential evidence is judged also. Yeah. What is the benefit of offering the plea deal? This is a cop out. I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
So it's there. Like I said, there's just so many questions still unanswered that a trial would have unveiled so much more, and it's a very unsatisfactory conclusion. So I do hope that there is a full allocution and that these documents are unsealed.
Yeah, Mike King, what are your thoughts tonight? Where's your head at right now?
I'll tell you, I sure didn't see this coming, Vinny, and I'm really glad to be on with Grace and with Joe Scott tonight because we've been talking about this case for a long time. I guess I'm going to be a little bit of a devil's advocate with a caveat, and that caveat is, how I feel about the victims of crime and the families and the victims' rights bills that have become established over the years, something that we fought so hard for back in the 90s when I was at the district attorney and then at the attorney general's office. But on the flip side of this, I'm really glad that they're able to secure 4 first-degree felony convictions, and hopefully that burglary will be added on top of it. The question becomes, why didn't the families know more? And were they really brought into the mix and discussed? Because prosecutors across the board are taught, or at least asked to reason with the families. And usually the families will come back, even knowing that they would prefer the same eye for eye kind of resolution in a criminal case. But you do hear these families who say, I'm so tired of listening for decades, this case brought up over and again as someone goes through the appeals process. If I know that he doesn't have a chance to ever appeal, if I know he's never going to walk out of the prison, that's good enough for a lot of families. But
it wasn't good enough for this family, and they made that clear. At least one, possibly 2 of them, and they made that clear.
Families deserve to be involved. And I think that's what's got us also incredibly disturbed right now, and something that I hope the state of Idaho comes back and answers, and that those families are able to acknowledge, we had a chance to be a part of this decision process.
Yeah.
I agree with that. So Born to Be Wild said, I believe he's innocent, and there is receipts to prove it. But hey, and see, that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of people out there that think he is innocent. So why take this plea deal all of a sudden? I just don't feel like there was enough evidence to say definitively that he did this. So why is he doing it? Hey, Parabola, good to see you. Oh, I hope you enjoy lunch with your daughter. 2 were satisfied with that, and that is true. I don't want to diminish their thoughts and feelings about the situation any. If I was, I didn't mean to seem that way. No guarantee of any of those things. Yeah.
Mike, do you think we'll see any of those habeas corpus or anything like that down the road, Mike? I'm looking at the Menendez brothers walking out soon. I mean, there's a difference. And there's a difference between your life. Life on death row is different than life. It is a different life. These people who get life in prison, it's a life. They wake up in the morning. They look forward to something. It's not the life that any of us want to live or should live. But it is a life, and there's a socialization process. They look forward to things. I mean, it's a different scenario. And by the way, they'll file motions anyway.
You're absolutely right. And this is the disturbing part with how we're changing now. We somehow forget that justice ruled and said, never again are you going to walk free. And then we see something like what's going on with the Menendez brothers. I had a phone call just recently with an inmate that was serving in the hole life in prison, down in the hole with 1 hour of out time per day. A guy named Dan Lafferty, who murdered a mother and her little baby in a case that I worked on and I've talked about a lot. And Dan told me just the other day that he's now out in general population because things have gotten hard on the correctional system. They're trying to loosen up, free up more space. That is absolutely unacceptable. And for a family who lost a child, and here we have 4 children that were lost as a result of a killer, to be told, hey, we're going to now give this guy commissary. We're going to give him a chance to go out and hang out in the yard and participate in prison programs, maybe even continue working on his education. That's incredibly offensive when this individual will apparently plead guilty to murdering savagely their children.
Yeah.
That's a big yeah, exactly. And that's why I understand why they are really upset about this. I wonder if part of the deal is for him to explain how and why he did it. I hope it is, but there's no guarantee. Not at all. 50-50 for the families and then the effects on remaining people, multiple witnesses, etc. I get it. And I agree. BTK took his plea deal on June 27th, so it wasn't to be like him. I heard that one too. Interesting. I didn't know that. Thank you for that. He still want all the attention he's been getting. Hanging out in the yard. Yeah, there's like a yard, like kind of like recess. I mean, I don't know. It's like a yard where they all walk around, congregate. They used to be able to lift weights, but I don't know if that's still something they're able to do. Basically, sit there and eat his root beer barrels and his one hot meal a week and get his books and his goodies and all of that things is what they're talking about. And their children were savagely murdered while he gets to sit back there and eat his damn root beer barrels and shit.
And who knows? You know, you get some justices who see the world a little bit differently 30 years down the road. All of a sudden, life without parole is cruel and unusual punishment. You don't know what the future holds. None of us do. We do know what the future of a death penalty conviction is. Let me ask you, Justice Scott Morgan, I mentioned about the key piece of evidence was the DNA. That's how they tracked him down. That was found on the snap of the knife sheath. Do you think that perhaps Kaylee Gonzalez fighting for her life is the reason that prosecutors and investigators got that piece of evidence?
Yeah, perhaps it is. And let's not forget that with the nail scrapings also came up with 3 profiles. Kohburger was one of them.
So there was his DNA under the nail scrapings. Hey, Southern, good to see you, sweetheart. Vegan green bologna sandwiches. Yep. They probably are vegan. I don't know what the hell's in them. Probably ain't real meat. I'll say that.
We're assuming that Maddie was potentially another, and of course, Kaylee. I think that coupled with the evidence that came out about the purchases of the knife or the purchase of the knife, maybe an attempt to replace the sheath, weighs into this a bit. And I'm just strictly talking about physical evidence right now at this point, none of the circumstantial stuff. I think that the totality of that and that alone, and plus look, those numbers are astronomical, Vin, that we're talking about, even with the touch DNA. And that's really hard for any defense attorney to defeat. The only thing they can really attack is how it was collected. We got an indication that was probably going to be under attack moving forward. You know, how it was collected, that this is quote unquote new science, you know, all those sorts of things. So they kind of showed their cards from the beginning. That was probably the road that they were going to go down. But after a period of time, you know, that dog's just not going to hunt. It's going to if you can't prove that there was some kind of malfeasance on the part of the police officers or the forensic specialists that were working on this case, then, you know, it becomes elementary at that point because the numbers are so just monumental to overcome.
Grace, do we know July 2nd how it's going to go down yet, or we're still waiting to get details about that?
I think we're still waiting to get details. Joe, I'm going to make you a green bologna sandwich emoji. I just saw one picture of the green bologna sandwiches. I'm going to do that for you. They show like prison tray food, but it don't show that damn green bologna I was talking about. I don't know. See, those green bologna sandwiches, that was in Durham County, and Durham was like there was people protesting outside because people had died in there. The food was so like really bad and messed up, and like it was a lot going on there. So I don't know if it was just there or what, but I'm gonna work on getting a picture of one for you. Uh yeah, oh okay. Stop being such a drama queen. Most die of natural causes. Yeah, they do. He won't cope in prison without affecting all his issues. He's got them eyes that make you feel like it's better to not get close. If he can unalive 4 people in minutes inside, watch his ass. We'll watch his ass. Yeah. You have? Have you ever seen green bologna sandwiches, or is that something that was just there?
I think we're still waiting to get details about that, but I do, it's funny that Mike King had mentioned that he has an opportunity to pursue his education in prison, and he certainly does. I mean, he was a student of crime, and his thesis involved studying criminals and how and why they did things, and he had a very detailed questionnaire before it was taken down, asking questions about, how criminals felt when they committed the crime, and there was like a rating system, whether they felt guilty or not. So he has a fascination for pursuing that kind of knowledge. And I can't help but think, but once he's in prison, he almost has this entire prison environment as his lab to continue his studies and to pursue that. And there's nothing that's stopping him from doing that once he's incarcerated.
Yeah.
So that's what that one says. Let's see. This one from Law and Crime says, here's why Brian is pleading guilty. So maybe that will give us some answers, and then we'll see what the family's saying.
Good evening. I'm Anjanette Levy, and thanks for joining me here live on YouTube. You are watching Law and Crime, and we have breaking news. Brian Kohburger, the man accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students, well, we are hearing that he has agreed to plead guilty to murder.
I'm going to pull up something to explain what Canada Day is and announce it for you guys before we go today. Yeah, that green bologna, it means it's rancid, but like I've never seen it anywhere else. I need to find like a good picture of it, but I don't know if there'll be a picture of it, but I'm going to work on it.
Those 4 University of Idaho students in exchange for the state of Idaho taking the death penalty off the table. This news started kind of circulating on social media earlier this afternoon, and then the Gonsalves family, the family of Kaylee Gonsalves, one of those victims, confirmed that this information is indeed true. And let me tell you, they are not happy about it, not one bit.
So, Tom, people were saying he'd do good in prison, and he probably will. He'll probably be a very popular inmate considering his studies and how far he went, as far as being, in the course he was studying, because he can help other inmates with their court cases and things like that. So I don't know. I'm thinking he might be pretty popular in prison, but as far as his mental health there, I don't know how well that's going to go for him.
I want to put the picture of those 4 victims up on the screen. This case, let me tell you, shocked the town of Moscow, and it shocked the nation when these 4 beautiful young people, Maddie Mogan, Kelly Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle, were stabbed to death in their house off campus in Moscow, Idaho, back on November 13th, 2022. The 4 of them had gone to a football game. It was the homecoming game, the big game that November 12th. Kaylee had come back from Coeur d'Alene. She had moved out of her family's home, and she wasn't even supposed to be there. But she came back to the house on King Road to show off her brand new Range Rover to her lifelong best friend, Maddie, who you see there, and ended up dying, losing her life in the.
I didn't know that she wasn't even supposed to be there. I had no idea. Oh, Lord, you're funny, Lori. Wonder what his dad is thinking, considering how cruel he was to the sister over her opinion, thinking her brother was involved. I don't know. Yeah, he probably will be excited to have friends.
Same bed, sleeping in the same bed as her best friend. Brian Kohburger, this is somewhat surprising because he had maintained his innocence for so very long, saying through his attorneys that he did not commit these murders, despite the fact that his DNA was found on the inner snap of a K-bar knife sheath that was found next to the leg of Maddie Mogan. These beautiful young college kids stabbed to death in their house off campus. Maddie laying there in her bed, sleeping, minding her own business, a knife sheath found next to her after she was stabbed. And Brian Kohburger said, I didn't do this. Despite the fact that his Hyundai Elantra, the white Hyundai Elantra, matched the description of the car seen leaving the scene, and that DNA being on that knife sheath. I actually have one of those knife sheaths here, sitting here in my office, and we can get that and talk a little bit about that here very shortly. But first, I want to bring in Philip Dubé. Philip Dubé is a criminal defense attorney. He practiced in Los Angeles for many, many years. And Philip, thank you so much for joining me. You were court-appointed counsel. You worked as court-appointed counsel, for decades, right, in Los Angeles County. And you and I have been talking about this case for more than a year.
Yeah, I'm interested to know what he has to say. Michael said she had already moved out and friends begged her to come back that weekend, which is really interesting. I had no idea the sheath was under her. Hey, Chucker Legs, how does have a pretty mouth? He does have a pretty mouth. Oh, Lord, he does have a pretty mouth.
It feels like about what was going to happen, what could happen. I remember specifically after Judge Hippler ruled that the evidence in this case would not be suppressed, you and I specifically spoke about this possibility and about just the massive amount of evidence in this case that pointed toward Brian Kohburger, and how you and I feel like I could pull up the clip right now, discussed how a plea agreement may be in Brian Kohburger's best interest. So what are your thoughts about Brian Kohburger? First of all, about the state of Idaho actually agreeing to take the death penalty off the table in exchange for Brian Kohburger pleading guilty, because this is somewhat surprising to me, given the fact that
They said, I'll make you squeal like a pig, boy.
This is such a heinous crime, but at the same time, it's not surprising to me.
Not in the least. And frankly, I'm going to send Ann and Ashley a congratulations card. They both deserve to be 2025's all-star attorneys. They have accomplished two significant things. First of
So this is very different than the Vinnie Politan one we just watched. I don't think that more people were involved, honestly.
all, one of the hallmarks of any good attorney, and I tell this to clients all the time,
Hey,
I
Indy.
tell it to fellow attorneys all the time, is keep your client out of court. And what both sides have done right here is they've secured a victory, not just for the client, but on behalf of the public interest. What have they accomplished here? First of all, Brian is not contesting these charges. He is conceding defeat. He is admitting guilt to 4 murders. He is agreeing to waive all appellate rights, but in exchange, he will be institutionalized in a 5x9 for the rest of his life. That means he has essentially spared all the witnesses, all the families, the victims next of kin, the aggravation, the trauma, and the heartache, not to mention the expense of having to go through a trial. And
But that's not what they wanted.
what if, hypothetically, the jury deadlocks and you have to retry the darn thing? You don't have to do any retrials, no appeals, no trials of original jurisdiction. It's all a done deal. And I think both sides did a fantastic job. As for Ann Taylor, I think initially, people gave her a bad rep, but she had an obligation to work up the guilt phase. And when, she was foreclosed from proceeding in the guilt phase with the defenses she thought she had, then column B is you go for mitigation. And in mitigation, the issue is not whether or not your client walks, but it's one of housing, where your client be housed in maximum security for the rest of his life, or will he be condemned to death row awaiting execution by firing squad? All of that comes to a rest. And I realize that for some of the families, it might not be the result that they wanted, but hopefully in time, as the dust settles and they realize he is gone, he will become a fixture of the Idaho Department of Corrections for eternity. They can put it behind them as well.
You know, Philip, one thing that's so interesting to me is the fact that we were talking just in the last week or so about the defense in this case wanting a continuance because the defense said, we're simply not ready. We need more time to go through the mountains of discovery in this case. We need more time to work up the mitigation. They just weren't ready. Also, we had that massive leak of evidence to Dateline that they're still, allegedly investigating. There's a special prosecutor who the judge confirmed has been appointed in some of the court documents. I'm kind of wondering to myself, this had to have been in the works. There's no way. I don't know. Am I wrong? Am I wrong that this just came about in the last few days? Or do you think it did come about in the last few days? Or has this been something that maybe has been discussed between the parties leading up to the judge's ruling on the continuance?
I think a lot of it hinged on the desires of Brian Kohburger. Remember, in the end, he's the client. He's the one with the final say as to whether or not he wants to exercise his right to the guilt phase and the penalty phase.
I mean, I appreciate them going through this, and I know he's kind of monotone, but I'm trying to I'm kind of trying to understand why. Like I need to know why, and I want to know what his thought process was, which I don't know if we'll ever get that, but I want to know why now.
If he's willing to waive it all, admit guilt, and take his life without parole, then so be it. That is when you take that offer to the prosecution and grovel, basically. And I've had to do it many times in my career where you have a dead bang loser. Your client is looking at a minimum at life without parole. If you really think about it, what does the prosecution have to lose? They have essentially prevailed. They are now proving 4 counts of special circumstance murder without having to give it to a jury, without having to retry it, without having to brief it on appeal. It's just complete finality. Off he goes to prison. The matter is closed for all time. And make no mistake about it, that if and when he takes this deal, and he on the record waives all appeals, and behind everybody's back, from behind prison walls, he files a notice of appeal or maybe a petition for writ of habeas corpus, guess what? He is back to Jump Street on all those charges. Everything will be reinstated. And if he thinks he's going to play games with the state of Idaho, he should bring it, because next time there won't be any more offers. He will get his trial, and chances are he will get the death penalty.
Just last week, I broke down how Ann Taylor wanted to push back this trial and how she said she wasn't ready. I mean, it's just amazing to me how this turn of events happened. So there was some reporting out there. Nobody knew at the time whether or not it was true. There was some reporting out there about maybe Brian Kohburger's mother didn't want him to take a plea deal. We have no clue if that was true or not. Do you think maybe this is something he talked to his family about? Because he had to have signed off on this.
If he spoke to his family about it, it means that he was on a recorded call from behind prison walls. Those conversations are not privileged. So anything that he would have said to mom, dad, or any other relative or friend would be recorded, and it could come into evidence. And if he said something like, Mom, I think I want to take the deal. Mom, I want to plead guilty. Mom, don't be upset at me, but I really did do this. I need to resolve this. And then for whatever reason, the deal fell through. That call's coming into evidence. And that's a classic example of why you don't talk when you're on the phone about your case while in custody. But there's really no way to know whether or not he spoke to his parents. But my instincts tell me that the conversations were really between Brian and the defense team, because ultimately they're the ones who guide him and navigate him through this sort of abyss, through this Byzantine sort of pathway to justice. And I'm telling you, I really believe that Ann Taylor earned her keep this time. She is sparing her client the death penalty.
We talked
I mean, but it's not the answer that anybody wanted. Any antics between families on the word and decisions were made for greater good. I think he's so fucking guilty too. I'm not ready. We are being rushed is a good start to an appeal, but thank God he won't be getting any of those, right? I've been wrong on very few cases when I think someone is guilty and they are not. Recently with Carrie and Reed. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Hey Wolfie, good to see you. Do you know who made the post on X saying that he wouldn't have to talk about why he did it or his guilt? Because I've got X pulled up, but they're just talking about the plea deal in general, not saying that he won't have to talk about why he did it or anything.
About the evidence in this case so many times and tried to give Brian Kohburger the benefit of the doubt. So that is something I think we tried to do, but the evidence appeared to be just incredibly overwhelming. Even giving him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I'm going to go over the evidence one more time. At least one of the most damaging or most damning pieces of evidence was his DNA found on this part of the K-bar knife sheath right here. This inner snap, that's where it was found.
Yeah.
And so,
and by the way, Anjanette, you can bet they had it tested by their own independent lab and they couldn't refute it.
Yeah,
So,
most certainly. You know that they did.
yeah.
And so, that right there is such a damaging piece of evidence that, that something had to, it's such a damaging piece of evidence. I don't know how they were going to contest it. Their own experts said that it was his DNA. Nobody thought that it wasn't his DNA. They were going to have to either say the sheath was planted or that somebody else put it there. Plus you had the car to contend with. The vehicle description, the FBI saying this is more than likely, this is the car we're looking for. And it was his car.
I mean, that is some pretty damning evidence. I think this has only left them with family. I think this has only left the family with more questions. Yeah. I think it's left all of us with more questions. I do agree with Vinny that you can't be sure that something 20 years later won't change and release him early. That is true. Hey, Ava. Bazaru, good to see you. If it was me, he has nothing to lose. If a jury found him guilty, death penalty or not, he's dying in prison. If you're innocent, you never know what a jury will decide. Makes no sense. He's taking the plea now. He's fucked now. Suspicious. I agree. Like, regardless, I don't understand why he took it now, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. I really feel like I know you do, Kraka. I appreciate that. I appreciate you reiterating that there was two families that did want it. Okay, thank you, Hannah. Let me check it and see if I can find it.
You had the black clothing, the balaclava. You have the Amazon searches for the K-bar knife and sheath. You had all of these different things, and it was just it was too much. I think it would have been too much for them to overcome. And Ann Taylor in court at times has seemed incredibly defeated.
Exactly. And remember, all she was hoping for at this point was prevailing in the penalty phase. So if you really think about it, she did prevail without having to show a jury that the aggravators were outweighed by the mitigators, if you will. She doesn't have to prove it. The prosecution doesn't have to prove anything. The only thing that both sides are conceding is that he is not getting death. But if you really think about it, it is still a victory. He will never, ever be released or re-enter society again. He is off the streets for all time.
I want to talk to you now, Philip, about the families in this case. The most vocal of the families has been the Gonsalves family, Kaylee Gonsalves's family. Her parents, Steve Gonsalves, and his wife, Christy Gonsalves, they've been incredibly vocal. They wanted the death penalty in this case. And I want to share my screen. and show you what they had to say about this. They confirmed that this news was indeed true. I want to make clear too to our viewers that the courts are not confirming any information about whether or not there's going to be a hearing. There's information out there that that he will be changing his plea on Wednesday.
I think that I've got proof of that actually. WB said he never took a plea deal offered by the prosecution. Prosecution is definitely using the mainstream media to taint juries. Well, let's talk about that. I just checked my Discord and there was something put in there. So we'll talk about the post on X and this thing that I just saw that was important. Hold on just a minute. So this is from yesterday at 2:49 p.m. The District Court of the 4th Judicial District of the State of Idaho and for the County of Ada, State of Idaho is the plaintiff versus Brian Kohburger, the defendant. Notice is given that the above entitled case is set for July 2nd at 11 a.m. in front of Judge Steve Hippler at the Ada County Courthouse. All parties and counsel are required to be present. So I think that tells us that that's definitely happening, that there is a hearing tomorrow. And the mainstream media said that there was going to be a hearing tomorrow, but I know you just said, that they're using the mainstream media. Now we're going to jump to this post on X. Hold on just a minute. Now, this post, I appreciate you sharing that with me. That was at 11:42 a.m. It says Brian Kohburger will not be required to explain the crime as part of the plea agreement by Nerdy Addict. All right, let's see who's Nerdy Addict. As seen on CCTV, SAR team leader that found the fake child, Carly Russell, reported missing. Investigative journal and true crime Jiggly Manstro. So I don't know. I don't know much about this person. I would question his credibility, but I don't know. For Madison Mogan's father, the plea deal is easier to accept. He told the statesman that if skipping trial means sparing his family from reopening wounds they fought to heal, that he's at peace with the agreement. If you're making amends, don't forget to put your own name on the list. Amends aren't always about saying sorry. And developments on the Harmony Montgomery case. So I don't know. I don't know who this person is in general, but maybe he's legit. Seems like he's got a lot of people following him and believing him, but I don't know. I can't imagine that they're going to let him get up there and not make him explain. Like that's not justice for anybody, in my opinion. That whole firing squad seems a bit barbaric to me. Hey, Cindy. Okay. So we'll go back to the video that we were watching.
But the courts are not confirming that. They're saying they'll have more information tomorrow. So that tells you something's going on. If they're saying, oh, no, they're not denying it. So we know something is happening. But this is the Gonsalves family page. This is where they keep people up to speed and up to date. And as I mentioned, they've been incredibly vocal. They've wanted the death penalty for Brian Kohburger.
Okay, I think we got as much as we're going to get from this. So let's talk about what the parents actually said instead of looking at it like that. Let me look at my list the other way so I can see what's older. What you're saying there, Bizarro, I agree with. Like, it doesn't seem like this case was etched in stone as far as his guilt went. Okay, so that's why I have an issue with it. Like, why did he take it? Why did he take this deal at this point in time? Because if we want to talk about the DoorDash driver, she didn't seem that credible. Not to be mean, what
I want
you
to bring in
said about the other eyewitnesses in the case. I mean, I'm not trying to be victim blame or anything, but there was quite a while in between them calling for help. So it's not like, it was a dead set guilty if he went to trial. There was a lot of people who believed he was innocent. So why now? Why now? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Okay. So this is going to be talking about Kaylee Gonzalez's father, and then we have another one to look at.
Steve Gonzalez. He is the father of Kaylee Gonzalez. His attorney is Shannon Gray, who has stood by him steadfast from the beginning. Steve, I don't know what to say. You're the first person I thought of when I heard this news today. I reached out to you right away, first to tell you how sorry I was, because I know how this is landing. At least I think I do. But I wanted you to have your say. I wanted you to be able to say out loud for everyone to hear what this means to you and your family.
This is anything but justice. This is the opposite of our will. There was no majority believing that this was acceptable. I want to honor all the police officers, the FBI, and all the people that work their tail off. The failure is at the court level, 100%. But the men in the boots on the ground and the women that were out there working, I want to honor everything that they did for our children, 100%. The fault is in leadership and the people that you place this evidence upon. They were weak. They decided to play God and decide what this man's decision should be, and not a jury, not a peers, not his peers. They, so that's where we are today.
I get why he feels like that, but again, I mean, even with a jury, there is a chance that he would have been found innocent because, as we know, there's a lot of people who believe he didn't do this. So I think they might have been doing it to save them from that. But at the end of the day, if it's not their decision and they don't agree with it, then it's not their decision.
Walk me through what happened. Brian Enton, did some really great reporting at the top of this show here. But tell me from your perspective how the last 3 days have played out.
I would say ever since Hitler's demanded an independent investigation, they couldn't get away from this case fast enough. They've done everything to make this case go away. So I don't know what that entails, but he said he was going to have an independent investigator, and all of a sudden we seemed like we were on rails to get rid of this case and make a plea deal. I mean, he's guilty. We all know he's guilty. There's more than enough evidence, but it's tough. It's tough to put a community through this, and it could be bad for reputations and business identities, and there's fallout. But this isn't the will of the victims. This is just one person making a decision, and it doesn't reflect what we were asking for.
Steve, did anybody ever call you from the prosecutor's office to just personally discuss this with you? Did anybody offer to meet with you in person to go over this potential plan?
We have meetings all the time particularly a lot of times on Friday. No. We had this regular meeting that we have to try basically do an update of what's going on, where things are at, because Idaho is actually an amazing state where it really does care about people. We just get one or two, people who just don't care about the victims and don't care about justice, and it's easy to take the weight out. It's easy to make an excuse and say, I'm doing this for the victims, even though I've never interviewed the victims. I've never really talked to them to find out what their true feelings are. So here we are. We're stuck, and we can't get out of it. I ask your audience if anybody knows Judge Hitler, reach out to him and ask him to put his foot down and not accept this offer. It doesn't reflect anything in Idaho. This is not justice.
So with him saying that, if anybody knows Judge Hitler, please reach out to him and put your foot down. If they do that, if enough people reach out, including the family, and say, please deny this motion, then is that what's going to happen? Therefore, giving more time to the defense to get their case together, which is what they wanted in the beginning. And like, do they know that? Are they using that to their advantage to assume that the family will that some of the families will heavily protest and the judge will more than likely say no, biding them time. But again, even at that, I don't see it as a risk for the defense to take, because again, what if he says no to that and he just says, okay, you're guilty, go ahead and do the rest of your life in prison? He's surprisingly calm and composed considering the circumstances. He is. But you can see the anger in his eyes. You can.
Had an outsider come to our community, kill our kids in their sleep while they're getting a college education, doing everything that they should do. And we
A lot of people say he was, Lori, an incel. I think the grief is unsurmountable. However, I believe it was the most rational and clear way to ensure he spends life in prison without parole as Bubba's cellmate. He's not cut out for prison. That's true. He's an angry man. I hope he also gets the help to decease this. It could be dangerous for him. That's what I see. You think so?
don't have the courage to hold him accountable. No plea deal. Let's go for this guy. 100%. Let's do it. And that's how this family stands.
Steve, I know that, it's no secret your daughter Kaylee was so close with Maddie Mogan, best of friends. And I know that you got to know the Mogan family as well. Have you spoken with the Mogan family, and do you know what their reaction is to this plea decision?
We actually just had a meeting with the prosecution and just tore into it. And
I think that it will be known tomorrow when they go to court at allegedly 11 o'clock. Hey, Max. The level of anger is the problem here. I understand why this time they may not have been heard. His word isn't everyone's word. The media is starting this. So I've seen a couple of people say that the media is starting this. Like, what do you mean? They're making the family see hostility in this or have an issue with this, like Vinny going off and obviously needing a gummy or something. Is that what you're talking about? Or explain that more to me. I did just drop the link if anybody wants to come up. I think he's calmed down a lot since his first interview. You think so? I'm going to see how many I can find on it.
Made it clear that we were not in support of this, but we also invited other families into that, and I'll let them speak on their own that were part of that meeting, but we are in no way alone on this. Multiple families believe the same as we do, but I want to honor their abilities to speak independently and as their child. So I don't want to cross that line, but all I will say is there was no majority for this decision at all. And if they're not working for us, they're working against us, guys. I mean,
So he said there was no majority for this decision at all. Bizarro said the whole case is a big red flag to me. I think they used BK due to the pressure MPS was under, so they pinned on him. To me, what they have is a very circumstantial, not actual facts that he did it, in my opinion. And, a lot of people are saying that. So again, why did he take a plea deal instead of going to trial? So he's going to do 4 life sentences per this plea deal. He'll never be allowed out of prison. He will not get any appeals. Like, it basically guarantees that he will die in prison. They won't have to go to parole hearings. There will be no appeals, nothing like that. But it takes the death penalty off the table. I'm concerned about the man's level of anger and can see he wants the harshest punishment, but long term, the anger will kill him too. Hey, Jennifer. This is just wild for me. This has been the most confusing case to try to follow. I was really hoping to hear all the evidence and really wish I understood why. Me too. That's what we're trying to figure out. I don't know.
have to wake up to this. I mean, we have to hold people accountable. Coeur d'Alene just had a shooting where we attacked our firemen. People need to stand up to these monsters and stop freaking bowing down to them and giving them childcare. I mean, Prison is nothing but adult childcare. You get free vision, you get free dental, you get free meals, you get AC, room and board, cable TV, internet access. It's ridiculous what we give our prisoners. Better than what we treat our vets. Our vets coming back from war with missing limbs. This is unacceptable.
Shannon Gray, I'm going to ask you to step in as well. Judge Hippler, Steve just mentioned Judge Hippler in this case. I have to ask you as a matter of law, would Judge Hippler have been fully integrated into this deal plan? Meaning, this is not a surprise to Judge Hippler. Is he going to have to weigh this and then rule from the bench as to whether he'll accept it or not? Or is it a fait accompli by the time they get this far down the road that the judge will accept it?
That's a good question. Hey, Skits, West Side Crime Music. Nice to meet you. If this bozo did this to one of my daughters, I'd be so angry. Right, and that's where I would be. I would be more fired up than he is right now about the fact that this person killed not only my daughter, but all of her friends, most of them anyway, and is not even going to have to go to trial or face the death penalty or be judged by a jury of his quote-unquote peers.
Well, I think a few weeks ago, Judge Hippler, talked about had there been an offer at all on this case. I think he mentioned it in the courtroom, and maybe that sparked something with the defense and the prosecution. I'm not sure. That being said, with a plea like this, it's with the life sentences and it's agreed upon by the state and the defense. There's small modifications sometimes that they can make to the sentencing regarding, restitution, some other things like that. But if the state presents sufficient facts to the judge or a plea of guilty to the counts, normally judges will accept that, and they'll let the defense know if they're not going to accept that ahead of time. So I would suspect that the plea will go through on Wednesday, and then they'll set over sentencing for a few weeks, and so the victims can be present to read victims' impact statements, etc. So,
Steve, I covered a case where the defendant was so overwhelmingly guilty according to the evidence, and it was a death penalty case in Arizona, and that jury voted guilty, and they did not vote for death penalty. So that defendant, Jodi Arias, sits in a prison in Arizona as we speak, and she had multiple access to appeals. I wonder if there's any solace at all in knowing that this can't happen to him at this point. There can be no appeal. There can be not one squeak from Brian Kohburger after he accepts that sentence at the end of this month, unlike what happened in Arizona, where
But I mean, what is the appeals process? I mean, maybe he would get out on appeal because there are people who think that he's innocent. And I mean, depending on all of the evidence, maybe one day down the road he could get out on appeal. But I mean, if he's admitted he's guilty, the chances are not that likely. It's the same thing as doing life in prison. So even with appeals, how is it different? Like, how would that change things? Carr said, I can't imagine what he's feeling, and I can't blame him for feeling this way. I really can't. I know for me, I don't think the death penalty will bring me any sense of justice or peace. I might feel it will bring me peace, but it doesn't fix that void in your heart. Just my opinion. I agree, but I understand why he feels that way, and I don't know. I mean, like I said, there's for Brian, there's a chance that people would feel like he did not do this, and there is not enough evidence to prove that he did. So why, after all this time, say I'm guilty and just take the plea? And then for the parents, him doing life in prison is the same regardless of whether he gets appeals or not, because if he admits that he did all this, then the chances of him getting out on appeal are slim to none anyway, regardless. So what kind of solace does that add to it, knowing that he won't be put to death? I mean, but again, you also have to bank on the jury finding him guilty and being sentenced to death in order to get that gratification from that. So it's just all messed up. Is that the word? I've stopped listening to a lot on YouTube. Oh, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't see you back there. I'm so sorry. I don't know how long you've been back there.
No, it's fine. Excuse me, my voice is all messed up. I've been sick for several days.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's part of Yeah, well, I would just say it's just part of the work when it comes to with my clientele. Occasionally, you'll catch something from them.
Yeah. I'm sorry. This is Bazard, everybody. Thank you for coming up, Bazard. It's nice to talk to you.
It's been a long time. I feel like.
It has. What are your feelings on the case?
Yeah. Just want to say hi to everyone. Hope everyone's doing okay. And like I mentioned in the chat, uh, I think there's a lot more to this case. I mean, I'm in the ballpark that I feel that there is a possibility that there were probably more involved. I just the timing to commit that kind of violence in such technically a really short period of time, and then either he didn't see DM or he did either see her. I've always heard different takes on either he did see her or didn't see her. And if
Mhm.
the idea is that it's believed that he was going after, I believe it's Haley. That's what Steve believes, that she was the allegedly the main one he was going after. Then it still comes down to, why didn't he just finish off the other, well, at least DM, if he didn't even know that there was the other, I kept thinking of the other young girl, the young lady that was there. But it's like, okay, there's that. But um I just think it's just weird that he would wait to this point to just admit it.
Yeah,
Unless, mhm.
a lot of people say that he didn't finish off the other people in the house because he got worn out or tired. And my issue with thinking that other people were involved is that nobody else saw anybody in the house, but that doesn't necessarily mean that nobody else was involved. Do you think that if there was more people involved, that nobody would have spoke up about it by now?
uh it would then come down to, would it be people that it would have to be someone that he would know if there was other people involved. I keep hearing theories that, oh, there was a fight. Allegedly, there was an issue that Ethan and Kaylee left a frat party or something because some issue was going on, and people were saying, well, maybe these people were involved. But even if there were multiple parties involved, it has to at least be someone else that Brian at least knew or was associating with. And in many cases, there usually are duels, or at least a team. Let's just say that. But
Yeah.
uh, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's like I said. I kind of felt maybe they were more involved. At least if it was just him by himself, I still think probably more involved. Just going off of just past cases where a lot of these killers, or let's say mass shooters, they usually tell other people they were going to do it, and then they do it. And technically, other people knew, you just didn't believe them. So kind of that's
Right.
how I somewhat feel with Brian Kohburger. It's like, well, if he did it, he probably, like a lot of killers, they tell the people. Then it's like, well, technically you knew, but are you technically still involved in the case because someone told you to do it? You just didn't believe them.
Right. Right. Yeah. I get that.
So yeah, I just for now, yeah, I'm like you and everyone else. I'll wait and see what happens tomorrow, and then we'll go from there. Because either he will just continue, or like I agree with you and other people, he does seem to come off as a high narcissist, and I could totally see him doing a reverse Uno in a sick,
Yeah.
twisted way. And it's like, well, you know what? I changed my mind. Let's go to this trial.
Yeah, I'm interested. I hadn't thought about that theory until somebody mentioned it to me, and I'm interested to
Hmm.
see if he's going to do that. I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's enough evidence against him to solidify a guilty verdict without a reasonable doubt. Like I think there is a
Hmm.
possibility that a jury could possibly say they don't have enough evidence and then he'd be off, and I think he knows that. That's why I'm not understanding why he did this.
Uh, I know I put out in the chat. We're talking about the sheaf, because I know the last video we saw they brought that up,
Mhm.
and it was that's one of the things I still feel that that's honestly the only thing you can get on someone. Like I know each case is different, but it's just the type of murder that what they're describing. Because first we thought, oh, they were stabbed, but now we're hearing that, well, I forgot which one of the young ladies was beaten. So then it's like they allegedly, like, either a blunt force object was either used. So now that might saying that maybe the hilt of the knife was used as a beating weapon. So it's like we're learning more and more things after a while now, and it's to me, it's just like nothing except a tiny little speck of DNA on the sheath part, button. I'm assuming the button part
Mm-hmm.
was the only DNA they got, and then it's like that's it. And then of course, well, yeah, you have the circumstantial evidence with allegedly the DoorDash driver, and that's like you. I agree with you that that thing would be questionable. The defense would hit on her about, are you sure that was who you saw was Brian Kohburger? Were you under the influence at the time?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that again, like I said before, I don't think she's credible, and I'm not trying to be mean. She's just been through a lot, very
Hmm.
trauma-ridden person, and so
Hmm. And then I guess the only thing I would think if this does go to trial would be still my one of my main questions would be, and it's always been something I guess I've always argue with people is the 8 hour slash 9 hour time gap from when allegedly the roommates eventually called. Well, not technically another person called, but you know what I mean. Like someone called 911, and
Mhm.
then the whole passing of the phone where each person was saying different things, and then the dispatcher couldn't get exactly understand what's going on, and then now I remember there were things that way back in the past where they were saying that they didn't, DM didn't see. I believe it was Kaylee. Was it Zana? I always get the names mixed up. Zana was the one that was on the floor that initially DM said she didn't see no one of her roommates, but now I know at least this year alone, and I've been hearing and watching different stuff that now is saying that she did see her, but didn't know that she was passed out or deceased. And then it's just like, well, if that came out, and I'm like, okay, that's weird how initially it was being reported by the media and the law enforcement at the time that she only thing she saw was uh, the uh, bushy eyebrowed man, and that was it. She didn't see her roommates, didn't hear anything from her other roommates except the other one that was alive with her, and that was it. And then it's like, well, now we're hearing that she did see someone on the ground, but she didn't know who that was particularly, and was still scared, and then waited for, like I said, 8 to 9 hours while texting about jobs and other
Right.
stuff.
And I think, just talking about that, I want to put out there, I'm not trying to victim blame. Everybody deals with things differently, but if we're looking at this from an aspect of a court of law, I mean, that is a score for the defense because they can play that any way they want to. Why
Mhm,
why would somebody do that? They're not going to say, "Oh, she's a victim," and people deal with trauma differently. And
mhm,
again, I'm not victim blaming, but they've got a good case there to prove that, to help their client. So, and he knows that. So, like, again, it's just all of these things. Like, yes, there's a lot of things that say he's guilty, but there's also a
mhm.
lot of questionable things. So, I just, again, at the end of the day, don't understand why now.
And and I know those people are to be the pro burgers and what do you call it, and anti co-burgers, and I've always been more in the middle. Just like I think, I mean, the thing that got me was the Amazon search. That's definitely highly suspicious. But then it was like, well, yeah, it would be circumstantial because then it's in the sense that, well, he lived in a state where a lot of people would get those kind of items. And then it turns out that he kind of was an outdoors kind of guy from what we've been hearing that he liked to hike or at least go on trails and stuff like that. And like, yeah, okay, it definitely is circumstantial. It was stuff like that where I was in the middle when it came to if he was guilty or not. And that's why I was waiting for the trial and then see what exactly the prosecution had.
Right. Because there was still a good chance that he could get off on all that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Carr said trauma changes the way your brain thinks and sees things. Listen to that phone call. She saw something and her brain is protecting her from it. And I get that, but I'm just saying, like in a court of law, they would have a field day with it.
And
Um,
that's why, yeah, that's where I'm at too. I'm not. I would never downplay a victim or at least a survivor of a situation like that's
right,
experience. I hope I would never experience. But just thinking of it in a legal way, I mean, if I was a defense attorney, I would be hitting that like crazy. Like, oh, are you sure you saw this? Like, how do you know he had a bushy eyebrow? Like, that's the only thing you can remember is such a traumatic experience. And you were
right.
drunk. Allegedly, you were drunk. So it's like,
Yep, exactly.
there is always a chance the jury does not choose death. Is there any solace in the fact that you will at least have him silenced and there will be no appeals?
Absolutely zero. None. Could be no farther than how we believe. I want my community support. I want that jury to make the decision, not Thompson, not some old man who's 70 freaking years old deciding how my daughter's life weighs in a courtroom. That is not justice. That is not justice at all. I'll take my juries, I'll take my peers all day long. I'm sick of one man deciding or one woman deciding what a life's worth.
Right.
So that's how I stand on that.
I fully understand how you feel. And none of us can understand what you're going through. None of us is walking in your shoes. And I'm just glad to give you this platform to be able to say these things publicly. And I'm also glad that you got the support of Shannon Gray, who's just been a rock for you. Thank you to the both of you. Steve, please give Christy and your kids our love. We will still be here. We'll be here Wednesday. We'll be here at the end of the month, and we'll be here for you after that as well.
Well, thank you. And you've always been a hard worker, and that's why we've always tried to partner with people who put that extra effort. But we couldn't pick the prosecution. We inherited them. But everywhere we go, we partner with people like you who are relentless and tireless, and they just chase down the truth. And I really appreciate that's what you brought to our case. And when people reach out to me, I'll tell them that this is a network that you can partner with and understand that they'll be there to the very end.
Edith said, in my opinion, I thought he was always going after just one of the girls and the others caught him, so he unalived the others so there would be no witnesses. I don't think he went there to unalive 4 people. I could see that, but then he did leave some witnesses that allegedly he walked right in front of. So, but why? I mean, again, that's the question. I mean, that should be the title of this case. Why? There's so many questions.
Well, I mean,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
that's what, with Steve believes that his daughter was the main target. I do think with Edith's point, like, I've always kind of felt that maybe the 4 weren't really, the intentional victims, but it was just what went down. But uh, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm speechless still. Like, this whole thing still got me speechless, I guess. But
Mhm.
um, the only thing I can really say on that part is that uh, hopefully we'll get that more explained after what happens Wednesday. But until then, it's a lot of guessing, and I guess we're just all shocked that this is the um, biggest surprise in any case in a long time that I can think of.
Yeah, it is. Nobody saw this coming.
Hmm.
So I'll see what this is. Brian Kohburger's explosive sentencing to reveal secrets. We can see what that says.
They've said, I want to move on
Okay. Sorry.
now to what you think, Philip, will happen at sentencing. If there's a change of plea hearing on Wednesday, do you think they'll do the sentencing at that point in time as well? Or because you don't really need a pre-sentencing investigation if you're pleading guilty and you're going away forever.
Okay, I don't know that I can listen to that guy. He's a little bit too monotone for me. So we're gonna jump to another one real quick. Supero, good to see you. What scares me is the Menendez brothers. What happened to them as children was tragic. However, what they did their parents was horrible. I don't want BK to get out early. He is dangerous. I agree.
I see it. I see the point. It's, if that situation, they definitely committed a heinous crime, but then it comes down to, have they officially served their punishment now?
Sorry, sweetheart. I didn't mean to cut you like that.
No, it's fine. But yeah, it's like, does people think they've served their due, quote unquote, justice now after being in the system for almost my adult life,
Yeah, I think that with the Menendez brothers, the fact that they were sexually assaulted played into that a lot because we have looked. I mean, basically, what it boiled down to is we look a lot differently on victims of sexual assault, um,
Hmm.
from now as opposed to then. And so I
Hmm.
think that's why they got off. But who knows? I mean, you're right. I mean, 25 years from now, we might see people who commit crimes like this as completely different. So, I mean, yeah, that's always a possibility.
I mean, for what that the first video with the I can't remember the older kind of chubby detective, he was saying that too, like what Benny was on talking about, and yeah, it's like it kind of looks like they're already in America that we're kind of heading to either what maybe somewhat of the European style where you have uh the good example I'm thinking of is the crazy white supremacist dude that killed all those camp kids in Norway, I believe,
Oh my
and
god.
he's yeah, that's a Anders something. I can't think of his name, but that's another crazy case where he's in a prison where basically he gets a computer, video game consoles, a nice bed, food, and he's probably one of the worst mass shooters, at least in the world's history.
Yeah. And for all those parents of those children,
Hmm.
it's devastating. Um but I mean at the same time we can't I mean, I don't know, the firing squad put a lot of people off. Like we can't go out there and, kill him 4 times over either. So I mean, but by a court of law, yeah, we could put him to death, but we can't kill him 4 times over and we can't do it in an inhumane way. I mean, firing squad was pretty inhumane to begin with. So I get wanting the death penalty and I agree with it, but like what
Hmm.
more do you want? Like, I don't know. I can
I
see it
mean,
from both sides.
I know, at least on my end, I will admit that I personally, if someone did something to my sister or relative, especially abuse of a child in a particular way, I would be for an eye for an eye kind of judgment. But I know we're not that type of society because I mean I think a lot of Americans would probably feel that way too. And maybe some in the chat, like if someone did something to your kids or to your mother or your brother or sister, I mean we could go archaic ways if we wanted to. Let the
Yeah.
family, take care of the alleged or accused, I guess. But that has its whole issues too, because then it's like, well, what if you're actually innocent and now you got to deal
Yeah.
with the angry family?
Yeah. Um, and what does that look like as far as red tape and bureaucracy in a court of law, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
Eh, Thank you for being here, Ange. Ange said, I don't think a jury would have voted for the death penalty. I wonder if there was enough evidence for 12 people to agree on guilt, no other perps involved, possibly family knowledge after. Right. So why take
Hmm.
this deal and say he's guilty after all of this time, is my thought, you
Yeah,
know? So this is titled "Victim's Father Reacts to Brian Kohburger Accepting Plea Deal." It's an hour and 23 minutes. I think she's going to talk a little bit about the case, and what we just watched might be a cut from it, but it'll give us more information about it. I don't know that I'll play every bit of it, but we're going to watch some of it. Whether a 3-letter agency, people die in these, or fraternal brotherhood, SRA, pageantry sacrifice, many folks are involved here. It's not a one and done. BK is the one kind of crime. Mm.
I
Going
kind
through
of see what
deck.
they were saying.
Explain it to me.
Well, because there's always been the idea that some murders have always kind of been some of a psyop, or there's more to it. A good example I've always bring up was with oh my god, I should know his name. He's one of the most infamous serial killers. Get, the Chicago serial killer, the clown dude.
John Wayne Gacy.
Thank you. How can I forget that name? But they, at the time of his murdering, there was another serial killings in Texas, and I can't remember that. God, I'm forgetting the guy's name. He was called the Candy Man, but he was named Earl something or Daryl something. But he was doing pretty much literally the very same type of crime that Gacy was, and there were reports or idea that there was a child ring thing going on in the time from between the murders that was happening in Texas and then what was going on in Chicago. And there's always been just the idea that I guess not for this example, like a pedophile ring or serial killer ring where people do stuff like what's that movie Hostel, where there's just
Oh,
basically like that. Like there've always been ideas that stuff like this kind of do exist. Like there's an idea that either
right.
elite people or just groups of people commit horrific crime, and it's like a business, and it just
Yeah.
sees similarities between serial killers. Like, well, that is weird that Gacy and this other guy were literally doing like the same type of crimes, and there were people allegedly connected with both guys too. So,
Yeah, I actually do get into that stuff, but I don't talk about it much on YouTube. There's theories that
hmm
when Charles Manson went to prison, one of the many times he
hmm
did, they sent a CIA operative in there with him because at this time, there's theories that they had shot Kennedy and what's his name on the grassy knoll was not the shooter, and he was involved in MK Ultra. And then they talk about
hmm
Manson, a CIA operative, going into the prison system and talking to Manson and teaching him how to hypnotize people. And then Manson getting out and basically being a CIA operative to test theories of, can we make basically peace loving hippies become killers, and MK Ultra and all of that. And yeah,
hmm
there's actually things out there that are pretty convincing about elite pedophile rings and like hunting clubs and things like that. But I try to be very careful about that. But yeah, I've looked into it, and there is
right.
some pretty interesting things out there.
So that's what I think Super was talking, and I've always heard of that, and that's the same thing like what you're saying. Like I've heard thing with Manson, the CIA, and it's just stuff like that where that's why people today question a lot of things. I've always been I want to say conspiracy theorist nut job and all that stuff, but I like the idea of researching these different things because there's a lot of weird similarities with some of these, at least true crime related cases. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you could say there is something going on, or there's just weird coincidences, but it, this case, that's what I said. I think a lot of people think they're constantly between either he did it by himself or I guess me because of the time frame, like, if I was to do something like this, I would and if he did plan this for months or maybe
Hmm.
something like this would have to plan, in my personal opinion, months to at least a year, like, or maybe a few years at best, just to try to commit a crime where the only evidence you leave is just one little speck of DNA on a knife sheath, and that's it.
Yeah.
No hair, nothing. I mean, that's I it's just, to me, just astounding. Like, I'm just literally astounded. I can't think of another well, other than the Delphi situation where it's like the only other thing they had on him that DNA wise, technically, what well, not DNA, shell casing, and that was it. Like that's kind of technically the only thing you could say that tied him there was physically there was the shell casing, allegedly. So it's
Yeah.
like that's it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's yeah. I see what you're saying. I do. Hannah said, "What has been released or leaked is barely anything compared to what they had," and that is true.
hmm
But
And that's
I
why
mean, I go ahead.
I just said, yeah, that's why I wanted the trial to happen. I wanted to see what
What else they
prosecution
had?
had. hmm
Yep. Yep. Because I mean, and it is weird to go. I mean, especially he's identified by bushy eyebrows. I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, to leave no hairs, no nothing. Yeah, it is. I mean, it is something to ponder on for real. I'm gonna not play that.
There is breaking news and there is breaking news. And when you do a true crime show and something happens at the level it happened today, this is sort of calamitous, so to speak. You may have heard by now, but that man, Brian Kohburger, has decided to throw in the towel, so to speak. And the government has tossed that towel at him. Brian Kohburger has agreed to take a plea deal from the state of Idaho in the murders of 4 University of Idaho students 2.5 years ago. I didn't expect this, y'all. I did not expect to come on the air with you. I'm on vacation right now, just so you know. I did not expect this. 1 month till jury selection.
Nobody did. Everybody's
Mhm.
just astonished. I don't think
Mhm.
anybody wants to be remembered by bushy things, Lorianne. Yeah, today is Canada Day. We're gonna go over what it is and tell everybody Happy Canada Day before we finish for the day.
I already had my plane ticket booked. I was ready to go. And I expected to be in Idaho
Hey, Ashley.
pretty much until November, when a jury would decide if he was guilty or not guilty or would be going to the death penalty, right? I did not expect a plea agreement this close to trial. But there are all sorts of reasons why this may have happened. And I am going to go over all of them with a lot of very special guests. And one of those very special guests is Steve Gonzalez and his attorney. They are going to join me in a few minutes for their first national interview. And my heart is absolutely breaking for them. This was not what they wanted. This was not what the Gonzalez family wanted. They were vehemently opposed. I think it's more important to say they were vehemently opposed. Kaylee on the far right, her family has fought tooth and nail against any kind of concession on this. They wanted to see this all the way through to what they had hoped would be a firing squad. Xana Kernodle's family, apparently, according to TMZ, very upset about this. They spoke with an aunt of Xana's who said they are all upset. Maddie Mogan was best friends with Kaylee. And so Kaylee's family knows the Mogans, and they seem to be in lockstep. Ethan Chapin's parents, you know, it's been a little different for them. Stacy and Jim have struggled as mightily as anyone else with the pain and suffering they've been through. But as far as death penalty was concerned, it just wasn't the highest priority. It was not going to bring Ethan back. Did they change their minds over the months and months they've been waiting for this justice? I don't know. They're very, very quiet about this. There are two people not on that chart, and they are not in this picture either. They're cropped out because they survived. They are the two surviving roommates from 1122 King Road. They are also victims of this crime, and they also have a say. I can just guess that Bethany and Dylan did not want to go to trial because they have lived hell as well over the last 2.5 years. And
I wanted to say, Bizarra said a lot of people think so many files, documents, etc. will get released now, but I wouldn't be so sure with the way this case has been conducted and the state trying to hide and censor information. A lot of people have said that it could end up being like the Chris Watts case, where he said as part of the plea, he wasn't that the autopsies of the children had to be sealed and never released. I mean, I don't know that they'll ever release all the evidence because, I mean, they're gonna look at it like, for what? I mean, we already have our guilty plea, so why put the families through that? Why put that information out there for people to be able to
Mhm.
FOIA request? I don't know that we'll ever know.
I can see that.
Hey, Leonard. Leonard said that this plea is bullshit. I'm kind of with you on that.
Yeah, I honestly think it just should have went to trial, and if he's found guilty, he's found guilty. If he's not, he's not. You know, and it just goes from there. You know.
Yep. Because I mean, it was so up in the air. Again, I don't understand what his thought process is in taking it, because there was still so many questions as to how he might actually be innocent. I don't think he was innocent, but to a jury in a court of law, there could have been an angle. They could have went with an angle that could have proved him as being innocent, because there just wasn't enough evidence that we know of. I want to reiterate that
Hmm.
we know of. There's a lot that hadn't been released.
I think if it did went to trial and there was maybe more video evidence of the vehicle that actually proved without a reasonable doubt that was him in the vehicle or that was his vehicle in the videos, that could be a factor. If it did went to trial, maybe that was something he was thinking of before this. But we only seen the images that were initially released, which were still images in the beginning of the case or the initial investigation, and then the Dateline thing just shows a car that's white looking that kind of looks like the type of vehicle he had, but it was just like a car that's white at a distance, but the video quality was still it kind of looked like monochrome, so it's like,
Yeah,
okay, I mean, it could be him, it could be someone else.
right. Not there's no way to definitively prove it was him. So I mean, again, it's putting reasonable doubt in the minds of the jurors.
Mm-hmm.
Going to trial and getting up on that witness stand and saying what they know while the world watches and then dissects everything about them like they have before. I imagine they did not want that. But I can tell you this is a horrifyingly difficult decision to make. Why the prosecutors offered, only they can tell us that. And I hope one day they will. They may not. Why Brian Kohburger accepted? Oh, I can definitely weigh in on that. They had him dead to rights. And when I say dead, I mean dead. They had him dead to rights. I said the same thing about OJ, though. And so I know better than to say slam dunk 100%. There's always a little bit of room in reasonable doubt. So there's always that risk. Did they have him 100%? As far as the facts and the evidence, yeah.
I don't know.
Was there a chance someone might get on that jury and hang it and cause a retrial? Yeah.
I don't know that they had enough evidence, though. I don't know that I agree with that. Now, granted, she's got a lot more training and knowledge, experience, and expertise than I do, but I just didn't see all of the evidence there to convict him.
Well, and I was about to say the whole OJ thing. I was like, well, that should be a good what's that saying? Canary in a coal mine testing. Like,
Yeah,
better wait and just let the trial happen before you decide what's gonna, if you think someone is guilty or not. You may feel like it personally, and I agree with
Mhm.
everyone. I think he was involved, but I have to let it play out. And if he's proven not, then he's, well, allegedly not. If he's proven guilty, then he's guilty.
right. Indy said this may be because of the Freedom of Information Act. Well, the only thing I can see as far as a Freedom of Information Act coming into play is if they don't release all the evidence they have so that people can't FOIA request it and put all that information out on the internet. I don't know necessarily because, for instance, today I just got a letter in the mail where I had requested something from West Virginia, and they sent me a letter back stating that that case has not gone to trial. So I was not allowed to have the information that I requested on that case. So none of that would be allowed out right now. It would have had to go to trial first, and with it not going to trial, they might not ever let it out.
Hmm.
Bizarro said, I hope it's a diversion tactic to buy more time as it makes no sense with the info we know and what we've seen recently that was released from somewhere, posing more questions than answers. Right, that's where I'm at. But again, as everybody has stated, we don't know everything that they have because a lot of it has been redacted, hidden,
Mhm.
and not released.
Sure. Was there a chance that maybe they would convict and not choose death? Is that possible? Would a jury convict maybe and say, but we
Hey,
can't
Penny.
do death penalty? Saw it in Jodi Arias. So yeah, that's a possibility too. So these are all part of the recipe, right? Brian Kohburger will be standing up and saying that he's guilty of killing all 4 of these kids on Wednesday, 2 days from now. Brian Enton has been
Mm-mm.
I said, yeet.
I was like, what happened? What happened?
She been gone.
Here, put that in here. I'm sorry. Hold on just a second. We'll get right back to that.
joins me live now. You and I have been sort of talking all day, whether it's been on the phone or over the airwaves, that we're both pretty gobsmacked by this. There's an emotional toll that, these families go through, and then you become very invested as a reporter as well.
Yeah, I mean, I told you earlier, Ashley, I was totally shocked by this in the sense that people have been asking me for the last several months, do you think that there is going to be a plea deal? And I always very strongly said, no, I don't think there is. I have not gotten that inclination at all from the prosecutor. I have not gotten that feeling that that is what most of the family members want, and they have a really solid case. And that is how I always felt and what I told people until Friday, until 3 days ago. And that is when I learned that there was this meeting with victims' families and that this first came up. What would you think of a plea deal? And what happened after that is strange because it happened quickly and it happened over the weekend. It was last night. It was on a Sunday night that the prosecution sent over a proposed deal to the defense last night.
So if it happens so quick, again, I would think it's because they're nervous about their case. And if they've got him in there saying that I'll plead guilty to all of the charges if you take the death penalty off the table, of course they're going to jump on it regardless of what the families say because they feel like there's a chance that he could get off.
Right. And that's something I brought up too in the chat. I was like, a lot of times the prosecution / DA, they don't really care for the families. It's the public image of the win / conviction, especially with a big case. And it's like, well, we got him. And it's like, well, okay, do you have enough evidence to really prove it to the jury then? And then they can decide and go from there. It was like, well, maybe, but we got him. So it doesn't matter anymore.
Right. And that's how they look at it, or that's the way it seems to us that they look at it. You're right about that. Yeah. Cara said even in death penalty states, there's a ton of people who are against the death penalty. Here in Florida, for instance, look at the Parkland shooter. He was up for the death penalty and didn't get it. And I think about that and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I get it. Like, I assume that, again, the prosecution, like I said, they see that he's going to plead guilty. They're thinking there's a chance he could get off. So they're like, yeah, we're going to jump on it. But the families should have still gotten more of an opportunity. But at the end of the day, it is in their best interest because he could have been found not guilty. The odds of the death penalty being sentenced would have been slim regardless because a lot of people are against the death penalty. And it is the state of Idaho versus Brian Kohburger, not the family of Kaylee, Ethan, Xana, and Madison.
And that's
I mean,
one thing. And one thing I brought up too was the Stern situation. I saw, oh God, is it strategic? Might be butchering.
strategic
Strategic.
eyes.
Thank you. Yeah, he was
Mhm.
talking about was this going to be like a litmus with the Stern situation? I'm like, yeah. I mean, honestly, it's like even if the situation is that, if he does allegedly plead guilty, will he still be getting the death penalty charge, or will it just be dropped and just have him in prison for the rest of his the general patron population for the rest of his life, or is he going to go through the whole trial, get found guilty either way, and then the second part is the death penalty part. Then it's like, yeah, it's crazy to think that this will be some sort of kind of big litmus test for a lot of other cases where if the defendant just pleads guilty, then the prosecution can drop the death penalty charges.
Yeah, I don't know that they would do that with Stearns. They seem to have a lot more evidence against him than they had on Brian. But I mean, anything's possible. Abellis, oh my God, thank you for gifting 50 freaking memberships. That is amazing. Thank you. I saw that you said Happy Canada Day. Happy Canada Day, and thank you for that. I should be celebrating you, not you celebrating me, but thank you. I will grab the Polar Express to pick up all of our new members. Thank you so very much for that. That was amazing. If you were gifted from Abellis, please tell Abellis thank you. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Abellis. That was so very sweet. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so very much, Abellis. That was so very sweet. Indy pointed out and said it's political, but I can't find that comment now. And then Helen McQueen came in and said, did prosecution offer the plea deal or did defense ask for it? And I'm not sure. I don't know. I think we were questioning
Both.
whether it You think so? I think we were questioning whether it had always been on the table and he just decided to take it after all of this time, or if it was something that was recently offered. Hey, Coffee.
I could see it both. Like, I definitely think they were worried. The prosecution was worried about the leak situation because I couldn't really see it. It would be such a weird 4D chess, or maybe let's say 5D or 6D chess game if the defense was the one that leaked that information to the media. But then it's like it would make more sense that it was either someone on the prosecution or someone in authority position that leaked that stuff. And then maybe they were worried that it could affect the jury viewpoint of certain things, or well, how exactly they were able to get the evidence, the DNA evidence, and blah 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 blah. But then I could also see with Ann Taylor, her job is trying to make sure her client doesn't get the death penalty, and maybe she knew from the beginning that Brian was truly guilty. And I mean, still as a lawyer, you're trying to get the best deal for your client, either get them off, or if they are dead to right guilty, then just make sure they don't get the death penalty, or at least some sort of better deal. And I'm doing air quotes, sentence. So it's like I could go both. I can see it both ways.
Yeah, I could too, and I appreciate you breaking it down like that.
Mm-hmm.
Miss King of Anything said, I heard the defense ask. So again, what would the prosecution have to make the defense feel that way? Abellis is one of the most beautiful heart and soul and generous people here, and a lot of you are, and I love y'all all so much. Thank y'all for being here.
She
Coffee
is,
said,
and so are you, Kara.
yes, Cara is too. All of y'all are amazing. Thank you. You guys are amazing. Like, you really are. I appreciate y'all so much. I love our little group here. Y'all are all so amazing. Coffee Fueled said, my understanding was that he pled guilty if the court took death penalty off the table. Right. We just don't know if the prosecution asked for it or if the defense asked for it. After all the defense motions were denied, they got to talking with the state. Okay, that makes sense too.
Mm-hmm.
She said, Tom, thank you. What did Tom say? Thank you. Vinny said the prosecution offered it. Okay, thank you. I probably missed that when we watched it. So why would the prosecution offer it? Because they feel like their case is not tied in enough. Like, I mean, it was a part. I mean, even thinking when you just mentioned the DNA, they said it was a party house. I mean, his DNA could have been there. There's reasonable doubt. So I'm guessing they offered it because they felt like there was reasonable doubt. I don't know.
That's the only way I can see it is either due to the leak or me and you and everyone else been talking about the evidence. Like, well, if the only evidence that we know of that has been, at least the public knows, is the little slight DNA on the button tab on the sheath,
Hmm.
and then that's it. I mean, and then unless, like I said, the video or images of the car, it could be his car, but there was a bunch of the white cars and that kind of area that, well, I don't know about the day, but just white cars like that in general. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see what maybe they'll give us some more insight.
Saying, look, you'll get the death penalty off the table if you agree to 4 consecutive life sentences back to back, 10 years also on the burglary charge, waive all rights to appeal, which is big. You can't appeal. You'll be in prison for the rest of your life. And then prosecution will also seek restitution to pay for some of the funeral expenses. So that offer went out late last night on a Sunday night, and then it all happened very quickly today. We get the news that he accepted the deal and that the trial will not be happening. And now there will be this plea hearing on Wednesday.
You know, this has sort of rattled everybody following the case. It's certainly rattled the family. Steve Gonzalez, as I said, is coming up in just a moment to tell us what he's gone through over this last 3-4 days. And then today, he's got a lot to add to some of the public statements he said online. And so that is coming up. Brian, I opened the show by saying they had him dead to rights. And I feel as though when you and I watched bits and pieces come through the gag order over the last 2.5 years, we felt like it was impossible for Ann Taylor to climb that hill to reasonable doubt. Do you have any idea whether there'd been discussions throughout the last 2.5 years ever about getting to a plea deal?
Not that I know of. I have never heard one thing about a plea deal until Friday. That is when I found out that these discussions it started. Maybe they were happening in secret before. I believe that there was this negotiation happening behind the scenes between the prosecution and the defense. I don't know how long it's been going on for, but you mentioned the evidence. I mean, there's so much, but I mean, his DNA was found on the knife sheath in the house where the murders happened. His Amazon history showed that he bought that K-bar knife.
It wasn't that one, from what I understand. It was one like it.
Mhm.
Miss King of Anything said, well, the prosecution is the one that can offer the deal. The defense went to the prosecution and asked for the deal. Okay. Yeah, okay, so if they went and asked for the deal, I wonder what they had that, like, made them feel like they needed to take that deal. Kenny said, I don't think the leak was the issue to have the plea deal offered. He's guilty beyond doubt. That's why he's taking the plea. Do you think I saw, hey, Yana. So is he guilty? He's saying he is, evidently. What do you think? Do you think the judge is going to approve the plea deal even against the wishes of some of the family?
I mean, it's happened in other cases. Hitler, I guess from what people have been saying, I mean, he kind of somewhat been in the middle, but I can still see that he has sided with the prosecution side a lot. And then I guess when it came to certain things, I didn't know Idaho's laws when it came to like, well, you need more evidence, well, I guess more substantial evidence to have the alternate, suspects and all this other kind of stuff. So, um, it's going to be interesting if he does. Just I don't know. I kind of maybe have a feeling that he will just allow it, but maybe he might shock us and be like, no, we'll have the trial. But I mean, he seemed to be, I guess, getting ready for it. Like he was kind of done with Van Taylor, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's I I don't know. I guess this is one of the very few times where I'm actually pretty to a degree
Loss of
nervous
words.
and just yeah, well, yeah, just nervous to see what will happen Wednesday. In most cases, it's like, well, we'll have the trial and then it's 50-50, or well, let's say for other people, it was definitely 100 to 0. So
Right. Yeah, again, I think this trial would have definitely been 50-50. I just didn't feel like there was enough. Um, Yana, so if they take this plea deal, it takes any chance of him making an appeal off the table. He will be
mhm,
serving 4 consecutive life sentences. Basically, they're going to lock him up, and that's going to be the end of Brian Kohburger until he dies.
mhm.
Are there already multiple Kohburgers? His appearance is differing in these pictures, many doppelgangers around this crime in Moscow. I mean, he could be one of those people, like, in my opinion, Travis Decker, who just fits in general population like chameleons. I'm kind of a chameleon, like not real noticeable, and appearance changes a lot, unintentionally, kind of, where they kind of just blend in a little bit more than other people.
Well, yeah, if he's, we'll see after tomorrow, but like if he does go to prison, he definitely would fit. Well, he would just, yeah, I wouldn't say fit, but he would survive. I think he would survive. He's
Oh,
highly intelligent. Yeah, he's
yeah, I think he'll fare well because of his education and things like that. I think people will see him as somewhat of a star, and I think he'll do
mhm.
good, other than, his issues with food and cleanliness. Miss King of Anything said, I think they realized with this judge was not going to let the defense run the courtroom like Judge Judy. Maybe.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. This wasn't going to be a Daryl Brooks situation, but I mean, like I said, I think he kind of was in the middle to a degree, but then again, I did felt that he was siding with the prosecution a lot more. It's kind of always been like that for the most part, but um, we'll see tomorrow what he'll decide in the end.
Yep. That's what I understand, that he's waiving any right to appeal. Yep.
Used for the murders. The cell phone pings took him to the house over and over again and driving by the house. The surveillance video showed his car going up the drive. I mean, the evidence was a lot. But, you know, again, I told you this earlier, in some ways, just for those of us following it, I almost feel duped because not only has the prosecution sold this bill of goods that they were going to fight this till the end, but Ann Taylor, the same thing. I mean, she said openly in court that she personally believes that Brian Kohburger is innocent. And now she also just, you know, basically is ready to sign on the dotted line. I don't think anybody saw this coming.
I will always say a defense attorney, you know, has to believe in their client. They have to give them the most fulsome defense. That's America. Everybody gets equal justice. It's what makes us incredible. So I won't fault her for throwing her, you know, full faith and trust into her client. But I will ask you this. Last week, there was a ruling that came down saying that Ann Taylor was no longer able to assert an alternative perpetrator theory in this trial, which would have meant that Brian Kohburger could say, I think Joe Schmo, Jack Smith, and John Schmay all had evidence that showed they could have been in that house, which could amount to a little bit of reasonable doubt for a juror. They got smacked down. The judge said, you don't have enough evidence to raise those kinds of allegations against real people whose lives could be destroyed. Do you think, Brian, that might have been the proverbial nail in this life without parole coffin? Meaning Ann looked at her client and said, Brian, I can't save you now. I can't mount that defense. I can't save you. Make a decision, either yes or no. Take the deal, or you may end up in front of a firing squad.
It's possible. I mean, look, the four alternate perpetrators that she wanted to name, and we haven't reported the names. We know some of the names. I mean, these are people who the names came up early on. Even the judge said it's a bunch of BS. They were not the killer. So to think that she actually expected that was going to go her way and she was going to be able to bring those names up during the trial, I would suspect she knew that the judge was going to rule against her, because even early on, he said, you need more evidence here. This doesn't add up. You know,
So with that going on, because I had heard some of you mention the aspect of other perpetrators, and like I said, I know about this case, but I haven't followed, you know, every news brief on it like some channels have. I didn't know. I mean, now I kind of understand what you guys have been referencing when you've told me about that. If the judge didn't allow her to submit that evidence to the court, I mean, they could come and later appeal and say, well, you know, we had these alternate suspects that we weren't even allowed to talk about in court, so therefore we need an appeal. And like that could get them an appeal, but with this plea deal, they're waiving all right. Like it doesn't make sense. It seems like they would go to trial and try to appeal everything, because that's a reason for an appeal right there.
Exactly. So, well, then I've been hearing the people in Pennsylvania, they're having a hearing to see the witnesses that were either going to come down. Now, I guess it was always two things with that. The people in Pennsylvania either were going to come down during the trial or after close to the sentencing phase if he's found guilty. And a lot of the people there were refusing for whatever reason, that they were not going to be participating going down to Idaho. Now I've been hearing some people think that maybe certain of these individuals that either allegedly did know Kohburger or were somewhat close to him, maybe these were the individuals that finally convinced him, or something in that field convinced him to change his tune now. I've been hearing that. But the ones that they were mentioning were like an old gym boxing coach, a classmate. I mean, there's like people that hadn't seen him in like probably 20 something years. So it's like, I thought about maybe there was someone, but it's like, well, if they haven't seen him for 20 something years, how would that be a reason for him to switch his tune, unless there's going to be people used into character witnesses in the sentencing phase?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like if they haven't seen it, I mean, he might have had a lot of admiration and respect for his boxing teacher or something, but if you ain't seen him in 20 daggum years, it doesn't make sense that they would convince him to change his tune like that and could
Mhm.
even add that much valuable information. I mean, what could they say about him that is that damning? And even if they had something pretty damning to say about him, I mean, it's from 20 years ago. I mean, maybe it
Mhm.
shows a pattern of thinking or something, but that's about it.
That's the only thing I could think of too on that part, and yeah, this thing is so freaking bizarre. It's like,
Yeah.
why? And just only, I mean, he still had until next month. Was it? Well, no, it was in August. Wasn't the trial supposed to happen in August?
Yeah, it was 6 weeks away, so he still had 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Because I think,
Hmm.
well, yeah, this month would have been the jury selection, and I know that probably would have took a while, a good portion of this month. So it's like, why now out of the blue you just decide to could admit that you did it? Well, allegedly you could say you could admit you could have do that you did it.
Right. It makes absolutely no sense. In my opinion, there was a reasonable doubt that
I
could be
agree.
presented to a juror.
It is. So I think it comes down to that. That's why I'm so stumped. I can't speak people. It's like, why? Why? If I mean, especially
Right.
saying that we think that he is this type of like highly intelligent serial killer type of individual, then most of these guys, if he's going to be like compared to Ted Bundy, Bundy wanted to play that game out for as long as he did, which he did. And you
Yep.
would think that Kohberger, who idolizes allegedly Ted Bundy, would want to do the same thing and just play along with everyone and just let this thing play out.
Yep. Because he did. He drew it out. Um, Cracker said Bundy would have never said he was stargazing on a cloudy, snowy night. Bundy won, Brian. I thought that was funny. The minds behind true crime with Dr. Vonna said he wants to be studied, in my opinion. And that makes sense
Yeah, I can see that.
because he still gets his notoriety and lives in infamy.
Oh,
Um,
he will have fans until the day he dies. So yeah.
yep. Horse Lover said he's a genuine two-face. People know his personality. Who knows his personalities?
Mm,
That's interesting.
mm-hmm.
Indy, thank you for being a member for 3 months and sharing that with us. That was so amazing and sweet of you, and I really appreciate the support. And I love the heart. It's so cute. Sorry, stumbling a little bit. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was so very sweet of you.
He asked for a delay. That was denied. I wonder if she has been trying to perhaps convince Brian Kohberger for some time to be open to a deal. Maybe he's the one who wanted to keep pushing forward, and she finally convinced him, like, we need to do this. But again, to my knowledge, there was no offer of a deal officially until Sunday night. So this all happened very, very quickly.
Do you have any idea if Brian Kohberger's family is going to fly out from Pennsylvania either for Wednesday, where he has to stand up and break everybody's hearts, break his family's hearts, break the victims' families' hearts and say, I did it. I killed each and, he'll have to say to each and every charge, I killed Kaylee Gonzalez. I killed Maddie Mogan.
He'll have to say guilty. Thank you so much for the super sticker or the super chat, Indy. You said thank you. I'm saying thank you. Thank you, sweetheart. I appreciate that.
I think Ashley's kind of going a little overboard. Like, yeah, he ain't gonna say that. Even BTK never said that. He just said, "I'm guilty. I'm guilty. I'm guilty."
Right. That's it. Guilty. That's all he's going to have to do.
I killed Xana Kernodle and I killed Ethan Chapin using a knife. He's going to have to do that. Do you think that his family is going to come out and stand behind him for this?
I don't know. My gut says probably not, considering they have never been to Idaho to visit him in jail, and they have never been to any of the hearings in Idaho. Granted, I did see them in Pennsylvania after he was arrested, and they showed up for that. I've reported on in the past, there's financial issues there. This all happened so late. I mean, this hearing is the day after tomorrow, Ashley. you know, can they make plans that quickly? Can they afford a last minute plane ticket? I mean, think about the victims' families. Like they were getting ready for a 3-month trial starting at the beginning of August. And now they're told on a Sunday night something's happening. And then suddenly on Monday, oh, by the way, yes, it happened. And this is the hearing now going to happen on Wednesday. So, I mean, for both sides, this happened so quickly. I don't know that his family can really figure out the trip that fast.
Yeah. All right, Brian, you've done incredible work, especially breaking this news. This is just so, I don't know, the whole earth just kind of tilted on its axis for those in the true crime community.
It kind of did. Horse Lover, thank you for becoming a member. That was so very sweet and supportive of you, and I appreciate that. And I will grab the crazy train and pick you up on the way to Speculation Station. Yeah, this has got this has set the true crime community ablaze. That's for sure.
I mean, his case was definitely going to be one of the biggest ones, at least this year, or at least of this part of, I want to say, this century. But in the last few, maybe say 5 years, this would have been definitely one of the biggest cases.
Mm-hmm. It would have. There was people that have been following this case for years and were getting ready for trial. Miss King of Anything said if he would have gone through with the trial, he would have been more well known, and even if he got the death penalty, it would have taken a long time to go through the process. And I agree. So
Yeah.
again,
I mean, I've
why?
always told, Mhm.
Oh, I was just saying, why do it? Go ahead.
Yeah, I've always told people, I'm 50-50 on the death penalty. I think certain people deserve it, depending on the case and what they
Mhm.
did. And the type of person that they have no redeeming qualities. But then, of course, there's the fact that some people are, of course, innocent and have been killed on death row, um, or eventually were saved. But when it really comes down to it, I think maybe because we've been romanticized by it, by the media and movies and stuff like that, most of the guys and women, especially the women that we can put on death row, they're going to be on death row until they're like at least elderly-ish people. So then
Mhm.
by the time you do kill them, well, the state kills them. It's almost like, well, you just killed an old man, an old woman. Yeah, they probably deserved it, but it's like they're already old. They're going to die one way or another anyway. So it's like
Right.
you just waited that many decades.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. They have like 25 years, I do believe, to appeal. So yeah, by the time
Mhm.
anything happens. Mm.
So, yeah, most of the people I've seen that eventually do get the death penalty, they're already like I said, older. You know, if I
Right.
commit a crime and I'll be 34 this October, so it's like if I did commit something heinous and then I get on death row, I probably got another 30 years, so I'll be in my late 60s, early 70s. I'm probably gonna be at the point where it's like I don't really care when I die now. It's like I'm already old, so.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your hard work on this, and I know it's been a backbreakingly long day for you, so thank you.
Thanks, Ash.
I want to bring in Steve Gonzalez. He is the father of Kaylee Gonzalez. His attorney is Shannon Gray, who has stood by him steadfast from the beginning. Steve,
So we did just watch this in the news cut, or the segment that they did on it. I'm gonna skip past it and go to what she
Mhm.
says next. Okay.
Shannon, but I'm sending you my my deepest love and wishes for some peace in all of this, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
So that's a theory that he only had one target and the others were just kind of taken out because they were there, but
Mhm.
or so there wouldn't be any witnesses, but I don't know if we'll ever find out the truth. If it was just one target or if it was just to see how many I can unalive and get away with. Um, Helen said they just executed a man last week that was on death row for 49 years. That's crazy.
Jeez. Yeah, see, that's like what I'm saying. Like, I mean, at this point, what's even the point of having a death row system? Like, unless, well, this is why justice system is always going to be have its flaws, because some of these people do deserve to get the death penalty, but then it's like, what about the people that were innocent and they did get the death penalty, and then it took like decades to find out that they were innocent, but it's too late now. There's no, oh, we're sorry,
Right.
that we did that to you. So I don't know. That's why I'm 50-50 when it comes to the death penalty now. When I was younger, I used to be like, no, if it was like, without any doubt and all the evidence was there, you deserve to get the death penalty. But, seeing different cases now, and this is I guess it's a good example of like, well, it doesn't even matter anymore. If the prosecution just wants that big win, they don't care what the family wants.
Right. And it's sad, because it seems like a lot of them were against it. Penny
Mhm.
said, I think the Golden State Killer had to plead guilty for each and every charge, and he had to sit and listen to victim impact statements. So, yes, I do believe all of that will happen, but he won't have to say, I killed Xana, I killed Ethan. He'll just, like, they'll say for the charge of the homicide of this person, and he'll say guilty, and he will have to listen to impact statements. Oh, I'm sorry, Rubber. I'm glad that you made it here. Yeah, I had to switch it because they changed the date for Stephen Stearns to be in court. Cracker agrees with you, Bazard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Steve Gonzalez joining us, as well as Shannon Gray, who, like I said, we just lost his connection at the very end there, but we certainly got the comments that we needed from Steve's attorney. After the break, there's another member of the Gonzalez family, the youngest sister, who wrote something so incredibly profound that my 38 years as a journalist, I don't think I could have written. I wanted to read a couple of those lines for you from Aubrey Gonzalez, Kaylee's little sister, because it is just, it's earth-shattering that she could come up with these incredible concepts in such a time of despair. And then also I'm going to speak with Mark Garagos, who's been through his fair share of very, very high-profile trials, and he knows the way the inner workings are. Like, do these adversarial parties, prosecutor, defense, are they so adversarial when the doors close to the courtroom? Or do they talk about things like this? That's coming up right after this.
A criminal complaint was filed yesterday here in Latah County, charging the defendant, Mr. Kohburger, with 4 counts of first-degree murder, in addition to felony burglary, which involves entering the residence with the intent to commit the crime of murder. As far as Mr. Kohburger, I can share with you that he is a graduate student at Washington State University and has an apartment residence over at Pullman. He has had an initial appearance in front of a judge in Pennsylvania.
Oh, sorry. Lisa, thank you for being here. Lisa said, I do hope the family gets some answers and eventually find comfort in this. I agree. I hope they do too, eventually.
I mean, that's the main thing. I do want the families to get, I mean, you can't really say they get comfort in a good sense, but just a finality of everything, and then to try to live their lives. Unfortunately, with the people that they're going to miss for a good long time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Being held without bond, and the warrant from our magistrate judge here also provides for no bond. We understand that he's scheduled to be back in court in Pennsylvania next Tuesday afternoon, and that a public defender has been appointed for him there. The process at this point is, since he was arrested in another state, he has the opportunity to either waive extradition and return voluntarily to the state of Idaho, or if he prefers not to waive extradition, then we will initiate extradition proceedings through our governor's office.
We are back with this breaking news on the plea deal for Brian Kohburger in the Idaho quadruple murder case, 2.5 years in and just 30 days, basically, till jury selection. My colleague, Brian Enton, who broke this story, is back with me live, as is Mark Garagos, who is one of the best attorneys in the business and has been through his share of high-profile cases. Brian, I want to start with you real quickly because you've got some reporting for me about what the prosecutors outlined to the families as their rationale for why this deal should go forward.
Yeah, I want to go through this list with you, Ashley, and kind of explain these different bullet points that they gave to the families about why they were supporting this plea deal. So they started with every trial, there's always risks. As we conveyed, we feel very confident about the strength of the state's case. However, this does not eliminate all risks associated with trial. They talked about a mistrial, hung jury, and the fact that this could result in the families having.
I know that was a weird place to pause. I apologize. Hannah said Bill Thompson can retire now. This was his final case before he retired. So I heard, and I had heard that too. So
Which would then,
go ahead.
I think we would maybe agree, like, this would then kind of explain maybe why he did this.
That's a good point.
Because that's what I was thinking you were going to say. Like, yeah, like I was just thinking that, like, oh, it would make sense if he's trying to have one last big final big win. Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think about that. Like I heard, I had known that this was his last case before he retired, but I wasn't thinking about that one final big win. That is a good point. So this says prosecution proposed dropping the death penalty. Must also agree to spend life in prison without the possibility of parole in a court hearing for a change of plea Wednesday. So it is the prosecution that proposed dropping the death penalty. I guess they presented the plea.
So this is why I feel like this now that kind of really does seem like maybe the defense and them were of course talking for the last 2.5 years, but this to me almost seems like the prosecution is like, you know what, we'll just take the win. We don't really. I mean, this is my speculation theory on it, but it's almost like they don't care how it looks. It's just like we won. That's all that matters. We got them, and you people should be thankful or something to that effect.
Yeah. So I've seen a few people, and I think Vinny said that it was the defense. So I do apologize if I'm wrong on that. I just wasn't understanding how the defense proposed the plea, but then the prosecution agrees to dropping the death penalty. Like it seems like they would say, "I'm dropping the death penalty" to get him to agree. And if they're the one proposing the plea, why would the prosecution need to get him to agree?
Yeah, allegedly. Yeah. That's I see what they were. The last person was saying. I didn't get their name, but I see what they were saying. It's just I. It just seems so weird that yes, the defense probably, of course, were the ones talking about a plea deal with the prosecution, but it's like at this point, wouldn't it be more like a big win for him, the prosecution, Santa prosecutor, if they went to the trial and if he was able to prove without a reasonable doubt to the jury that Kohburger was the guy. But then I keep bringing up, I think maybe the leaks and probably some other things that we would have seen if it went to the trial where it could have put some doubt. Maybe they were afraid that maybe at least on him, but maybe his team would have been afraid that if they weren't able to convict him, or if they were able to convict him but not get the death penalty, or if they were not able to get convict him at all, then it's going to be looking like, well, at least for him and his team, one of the worst losses ever, especially if he were retire. That's just my take on that.
Right. I could see that. Lisa said that's his one Uno card. He knew there was a good chance he'd get death, and the prosecutors knew that there was a chance they wouldn't. Plus, they don't have to pay for a huge trial. Those are good points.
Yeah, that's a good point, Lisa. But then it's like they already had it. Well, they definitely had a lot more money compared to defense. Like they've already spent enough money or millions already. So I don't think, and this is taxpayer money. I honestly don't believe they really care if they take a lot of money from us, like the government does anyway. So it's like it's taxpayer funded money. They still will get paid. It's just we, of course, the citizens of the state, or at least in Idaho, they would have had to deal with the financial situation on that end.
Yeah, that's true.
Having to go through the process again. They also said a month-long jury trial will impose an emotional, mental, financial, and physical toll on the families, friends, roommates of the victims without any certainty of an outcome. There would be
So maybe the financial toll on the victims' families would play a role in that.
Yeah. that would be, I guess, that would be one thing if they really cared about the family wants and needs, then yeah. But like I
It
said,
doesn't seem
it's
like they did. Yeah.
right. Yeah, it's like, wait, we get paid by the tax people. We don't really care per se.
Right.
Be some measure of finality if the defendant admits he was guilty of the murders. There is only one realistic way to get this type of closure, and that is through his entry of a guilty plea. So basically, they were saying if the trial moved forward and he was pleading not guilty, they would have never gotten the satisfaction of a guilty plea. And this was interesting. They said that sadly, as many have experienced, there are individuals out there who believe in conspiracy theories about this case, believe the defendant to be innocent or support the defendant in some way. We know the sentiments of support of defendants have been unbearable. We can only hope that at least some of these people will turn their attention to other matters if the defendant takes responsibility and admits to his heinous crimes by pleading guilty. And the last two reasons they gave, or the last reason they gave, the state believes the death penalty is warranted in this case. We've never wavered in that. However, they talked about how people can remain on death row for 30 or 40 years, which has happened in Idaho. There would be appeals, and that this would just drag on and on for the families. Ashley?
Mark Garagos, Brian Enton just listed out some very strong reasons for why a plea deal is a great idea. If you're Steve Gonzalez, the state had this guy. They had him dead to rights. They had overwhelming bad facts that, I mean, I don't know that Ann Taylor could have climbed that Everest with every tool in the toolbox. Why a plea deal for a case that looked this rock solid?
You know, it shows you how jaded I suppose I am. I didn't understand why they took the plea deal, the defense. I don't get it. This is somebody, that was my first reaction. I know that may not be a popular reaction, but what's the advantage of him taking a plea deal to life without and no chance of appeal when it's a circumstantial case? Number one. Number two, the reasons the prosecutor gave here are compelling. I don't know. I've never had a trial where both the victims and the accused families hasn't said, how do you do this for a living? How do you go through a trial like this? Trials are not easy. Trials are some of the most stressful, unbelievably nerve-wracking things you could ever go through. And the idea of having a defendant get up, plead guilty, accept responsibility, say, I'm not going to appeal, waive my right to appeal, and all he gets is he's not going to sit on death row for 30 years or until such time as the death penalty may be eliminated, as it is in many states. I get the raw emotion. I get that, and I understand nobody. Nobody's going to second guess anybody who's had the unthinkable happen to them. So I understand that.
Yeah.
At the same time, please, why go through this just to have a jury say the same thing and then have to listen? Let me tell you what would end up happening. You get to a guilty verdict in that phase. You then get to a penalty phase, and you have to listen to mitigation evidence. If you're the victim at that point, and that's a legal conclusion, the victim, because somebody's been found guilty, you don't want to hear a litany of mitigation evidence about somebody.
So basically, the mitigating factors, like we talked about in Stern's case, they're saying that at the sentencing phase, they would go through mitigating factors for Brian Kohburger, if I'm understanding correctly. And basically, the actual victims' families don't want to hear about how Brian is a victim. But again, it seems like they were very much against this regardless of that.
Right. And Geragos that's why I do like his take on a lot of things, because he is right. When it comes down to it still wouldn't make sense unless, like I said, until we find out tomorrow, if it really goes down, why the prosecution will allow this to happen. And then to get it to where it's like we probably may never know what really what happened. He'll just admit that, yeah, I did it, and that's it. And then maybe he might say something years later, maybe he won't. And then like he said, the defense, it just seems a little bit weird, but we'll wait and see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah, I think tomorrow we might find out some crucial evidence or something. I got a feeling there's something big here, maybe that we're gonna find out about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Who has been found guilty of killing your loved one. I can't think of anything worse. I don't want to hear about all the good things or all the problems or this or that. I just want the person gone. And I think there is some closure with somebody standing up and taking a responsibility. And I think that with some hindsight that and I remember, Ashley, you tell me when we first talked about this, some of the victims' families were on your show saying that they were not supportive of the death penalty. So I'll leave it at that.
There are some who said it did not matter to the level it did to others. It seemed with victims' family members that there were more that did. But Mark, I'm so appreciative of you jumping on with me last minute for the breaking news. Thank you. I'm going to call you again on this because this is definitely not over. And Brian Enton, I'm going to ask you to stay because there's still lots of work I have ahead, questions I have for you as well. There's this notion after the break that I'm going to dig into the protocols because I want to know if he's got to stand up in court and tell us what happened. What did you do to those kids? Tell us, because we've been under gag order all these years. Is it time for Brian Kohburger to not just say he's guilty, but what he did and why he did it? I'm going to find out if the law demands that in Idaho. The expert in Idaho protocols is coming up in just a moment. But also, Stacy and Jim Chapin are the parents of Ethan Chapin. And Mark Garagos just mentioned they weren't all on board for a death penalty. Here's part of the interview that I did with them many months ago.
For us in our family, personally, he was kind of the comedian. He could lighten any family situation.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so sweet to see him with his sister and his brother. I'm interested to know if he's gonna have to admit why he did this, but I don't even know if she knows at this point.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna find out.
He was good.
He was funny. He was kind.
Yeah.
He just kept us all moving forward. I don't know. He
loved his family, his
Yeah.
friends. He
Yeah.
just loved to be with everybody and just have a good time.
Yeah.
I mean, he's pretty easygoing. He just loved life.
There are likely some defensive wounds, but no, there just were a lot of stab wounds. And so, I mean, it was late at night or early in the morning. So it seems likely that maybe they were sleeping.
That was an interview that shocked me. Shortly after the murders of 4 University of Idaho students, I spoke with the coroner who told me about the depth of the stab wounds, who told me about details it was just sort of bone chilling to hear what had happened to those 4 kids.
Hannah said, no, Judge Hippler wanted open court proceedings throughout. It's why he said only the surviving victims could be off camera so the public would accept any verdict reached. So, I want to know exactly what happened too. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, it would have been publicized. But yeah, I knew that part with the I'll say the initials DM, and I forgot the other or I forgot the other roommate. They never.
I forget them too, unfortunately, and I shouldn't.
DM is the one I think most people know, and I won't say her first name, but the other one they don't talk much because technically she was only awoken like way after allegedly the murders happened, and then that was when her and DM were see, that's another thing too that is, I don't know if I ever explained that, is when exactly DM met up with her, because they were in, I believe they're on separate rooms, and then the whole texting and
BF.
messaging. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
DM and BF. Sorry.
okay. So yeah, that's another thing too. Like I just thought of like, I don't know if that's ever going to be explained, but yeah, they just they were going to be the only two I know that wasn't going to be shown when they were on the stand. But I'm assuming everyone else would have been shown on TV.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sorry, I thought Mr. Speculating was off work early. It looked like he had pulled up. Um, yeah, and I get that. I appreciate them keeping them off camera. Um, but I want to know. I want him to have to say why he did this in court.
Hmm.
Mainstream MOP, thank you for being here, said he killed them and was going to be terminated on a table. That's why this is not justice, in my opinion. I agree. The family's real upset about it. Judge will have final decision on everything and can stipulate that he has to give details of his actions. I hope that he does. I mean, I hope they make him do that.
Right. You would think that that would be make sense for a lot of other cases too, especially like I don't like to bring him up in this situation, but the Stern situation is like, God, man, you can only imagine if they forced that on his ass in Florida.
Yeah. To say why he did what he did.
To be just admit what just admit what happened. I was like, what was that?
She might be stroking out. Let's hope not. Yeah, to admit yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
No, I thought like, did I say something funny for a second? Or you
No.
saw something funny? Yeah.
Yeah, on a table, the death penalty. Basically, referencing him being tied to a table and getting the lethal injection. Okay, back to Stearns. Yeah,
Hmm.
I want to know. I really want to know what it was about Maddie and specifically. But yeah, it would be interesting if he had to say why it happened, what his thoughts were, why he did the things he did. I don't think that'll happen there. But
No, but even if he did, I guess that would also be the Jin situation. I think that would finally answer what we've all been wondering with the whole Jin. Like, okay, if
yeah,
he was forced to admit, then he would have to say, "Oh yeah, Jin knew what was going on," or what's the thing people have said that he groomed Jin in some way? Maybe he did, but I guess he could admit that. But I think that would be what most people kind of like. We already know that he was, a pedophile and he was doing with the sick disgusting shit he did to Maddie. But I think a lot of us would want to know: did Jin knew the whole entire time?
yeah. He did come home. He is home. Okay.
Good,
He got off
good.
work early.
Won't be testifying. Nobody will be. No one will be testifying, but I sure hope that Brian Kohburger has to stand up and make an allocution explaining to us why. What did you do to these 4 kids and why? Not every state operates the same way. I've seen allocutions before, like Dennis Rader's that, rose the hair on the back of my neck. But others, Chris Watts, I mean, he said a few things about the kids that he killed, his own kids, his wife, but not all the details, not all of them. I want to bring in Edwina Alcock. She is an attorney in Idaho. She knows the protocols in that state. That is her state, and this is a state case. And Brian Enton is still here with me as well to fill in a lot of the gaps. I've got you still here, Brian. I know it's breaking news, and I'm sorry to keep you.
Sorry.
I'm going to ask you.
What did you say?
I was just laughing because he wasn't paying attention. He's like, "Oh, really?" When she said, "Brian, you're still here," he's like, "Oh, really?"
I didn't catch it. That's funny.
Yeah, it just made me laugh. It's something stupid.
Question in a moment. Edwina, can you tell me about the protocol for a circumstance like this? Start with Wednesday, the day that the plea is going to be changed from not guilty to guilty. What should we expect to see happen on Wednesday? What will we hear from Brian Kohburger on that day?
Sure. Thank you, Ashley. I think that what we can anticipate in this case is the judge is not going to accept any type of skirting around the elements of this crime. Unfortunately, what is going to be required is Mr. Kohburger pleading guilty to the elements of the murders of each of these 4 kids. And I hate to use the words kids because they're obviously adults, but we know that they're just, university students on the cusp of their life. And I think the court is going to require and not accept anything other than Mr. Kohburger telling the court exactly what happened in this case.
But I don't expect that Wednesday. Do you expect that much of an allocution on Wednesday? Or do you expect to hear those kinds of details during sentencing at the end of July?
If the court is going to accept a guilty plea on Wednesday, Brian Kohburger is going to have to tell the court exactly what he did to be guilty of this crime. So I do expect that on Wednesday. Unless there was an Alford plea, which there.
She's talking really slow. People are asking, did she just wake up from a nap? I don't know that that they're gonna have to say that on Wednesday. Maybe, I mean, I don't know. It's possible because he's pleading guilty, and maybe as part of the plea deal, he has to say why he's guilty, what he's guilty of. I mean, but again, that would make me think that they're gonna say, as far as the homicide of Xander Kernodle, how do you plead? And he's gonna say guilty. For the families to have closure, I would think that they would want him to say why he did it and what exactly happened, but their feelings have not been upfront and foremost in thought process up to this point because they didn't agree with this. Hey, Skulma.
I cannot anticipate the state agreeing to in this case, but if the court is going to accept a plea, he's going to have to tell the court what he did.
And Brian Enton, if you could just weigh in very quickly, this has all been very last minute for the families as well. And so they haven't even got 48 hours at this point to put together their statements, their victims' impact statements. I mean, where did they tell you they were at with this process? Even arriving, even going to the hearing on Wednesday.
Well, and just to respond to what Edwina said, I have been told that the prosecution said that they would not accept an Alford plea. And what an Alford plea is, and Edwina can correct me if I'm wrong, she's the lawyer here, but the way I understand it, an Alford plea would have been a plea where he would have pled guilty, gotten life, but he wouldn't have actually admitted to committing the murders. And I am told that the prosecution would not accept that kind of a plea. It needed to be just a flat out, I did it, I'm taking full responsibility plea. So I don't think Alford plea is on the table, but I guess we'll find out for sure on Wednesday.
Yeah, it seems like this woman has said a lot of things that maybe not make a lot of sense, but it could be. I mean, I don't see an Alford plea being on the table either at all.
In terms of the timing, I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was like, unless the prosecution was like, no, you would just admit everything. You're going to explain everything what happened that night, and then you can get your non-death penalty.
And I hope that's what they do, because I think the families deserve that if they're not going to get the chance to watch him die. And I mean, I hate to be so graphic about that, but again, if you killed my child, my bonus child, somebody that I love and care about, and their best friends while they're at college trying to be better adults, and like, you admit that you did this, yeah, I'm gonna want to watch you die. I mean, that's just, I'm sorry, but I am.
I'm in the same ballpark. I prefer especially in a heinous way too. It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
you definitely deserve the death penalty. I just know that I would be not fine, but what's the word I want to use? Resolute to sense that I can wait. I'll make sure I'll live long enough just to wait for it's your time.
Right.
Because I know how the process is going to be. It's going to be probably 30 years from now, but I'll wait. I can wait.
Right. Hannah, thank you. I did check for a Diddy update and it didn't show me anything. Hannah says, as far as Diddy goes, the jury are hung on count 1, but have reached verdicts on count 2, 3, 4, and 5. Thank you for that.
Oh, that was another thing I was going to say. With I saw, God, I think it was on News Nation or maybe it was the Court TV or the Law and Order one, but it was a defense lawyer that was saying that he
Oh,
knew that. Mhm.
hold
I
on.
think these families were getting ready for a trial in August,
Hold on.
and
Sorry.
emotionally.
I'm sorry. My computer went crazy. I was trying to pull up an update on Diddy. I am so sorry. I didn't mean
Mhm.
to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, that's I was going to bring up the Diddy situation. It was I forgot what channel that I saw it, but it was his defense attorney. He was saying that he believed that Diddy was going to have several of his charges dropped, and we already just saw what last week or a few. I know I saw something several days ago where they dropped several major charges on him, like they just dropped it. So this I
Yeah.
can't remember the lawyer's name, but he was right. And I was like, I think he was right, and he was like, well, by God, he was right.
Yeah. And I don't understand why they dropped charges on that man either, but, I'm not educated in these things. It was
Mhm.
disturbing for me, though, because that
Uh,
man.
From what
Yeah.
I think, it was the conspiracy and then something kind of RICO related were the ones that they still kept on the books, but they dropped the kidnapping, arson, uh, a few other serious ones. So I'm like, wow, I can't believe this guy predicted it like several weeks ago, like or at least several months. What I can remember when I saw this video.
Hmm. So there's got to be a reason for that he knew of.
Yep. hmm
Yeah.
I think
But I
he was
get.
just I think he was just saying that because he felt that the prosecution probably just couldn't, the state or New York couldn't prove without a reason about doubt the certain higher charges, but he said he can still get charged like something, well, I guess technically somewhat lower, but the conspiracy and then I know something related to Rico. I can't remember what was the other one, but he was right on at least on those ones that he said he'd probably get found guilty on.
Yeah.
Gearing up for that. And now to know that they have to figure out a way to get to Boise in 2 days and face the man who is admitting to killing their kids. And I told you this earlier, Ashley. One family member told me, and this just like really hit me the way she described it, that she had been working through for 2.5 years to get her power back, like to take the power away from Brian Kohburger and to feel empowered again. And that she felt like when the prosecution gave Kohburger the option of either taking the plea or going to trial, that he somehow had all the power again now. And that was the most devastating thing for her. And I think that just gives you an eye into sort of how these families are processing this right now.
I can't even imagine what it's like to walk in their shoes. Edwina Elcox, thank you for stepping in last minute on this breaking news. Brian Enton, as always, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your work, and it is just stellar. You are among the giants, I believe, in this industry. Thank you for that. In just a moment, Brian's going to come back, and I'm going to give you the lowdown, the schedule, not just Wednesday, but the sentencing schedule. And then I'm going to remember the 4 most important people in this story, the 4 kids who lost their lives. That's next.
Okay. I am watching on another. I'm just kind of flipping back and forth. I'll show you. I'm looking at this, and then if I hover my mouse over it, it'll say like verdict reached. Basically, what y'all told me, but it hasn't said that. Um, that it like guilty or innocent yet. So
Mhm.
I am watching that for you guys. when we find out something, I will click over here to it, but that's all I have right now. So I am watching that for us to see if we can get an update. Hey, JDR. Apparently, verdict is in. We can see. I mean, but I think it's just like people standing outside. It says, latest updates, a jury returns to deliberate for a second day. On Monday, jurors deliberated for over 5 hours after receiving instructions on the law. When a verdict is reached, Fox 5 New York will have live coverage of the decision. Is this Fox 5 New York? Let's go to...
This one thing with these New York cases, it's like they never really like to do. I guess it was federal related. They don't like showing anything at all.
Yeah, they don't. I don't understand that because I want to hear Long Island serial killer.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. It's going to be New York based, so they're not going to really show much of that trial. And we'll only see the drawings, and that's about it. And then one of the court reporters will say,
Yep.
An
Wow.
act of transportation trafficking of the woman who was identified as Jane. So we are waiting to hear what the jury has come back on those counts. And we are going to go to Arthur Chien, who is live outside the courthouse for us. And he is ready to talk to us now to bring us the very latest. Thanks, Arthur, for being here. What can you tell us about what's happening? All this unfolding just really at 4:36, just about 10 minutes ago, we got word.
Yes, this is happening very quickly, Sharon. What can we tell you? This was the second day of deliberations for the jury, but it was the first full day. There have been several notes that they've sent out. And the most recent note, what we do know is that the jury is in agreement on 4 out of the 5 counts of this indictment. There are 5 counts altogether. We've been going over the fact that there are 3 categories, and it seems like entirely in the second and third category, which are counts 2 through 5, the jury has reached a verdict. We do not know what that verdict is, guilty or not.
So do you guys want to watch this, or do you want to go back to finishing out Kohburger? Let me know if you guys want to watch the Diddy verdict live, or if you want to go back to Kohburger. We all know he's guilty as fuck.
I'll let the chat vote and be democratic and decide on that. I'm good with either one. I mean, the Kohberger one we'd have to wait till tomorrow, and then this one is like possibly done today, maybe.
Yeah. Diddy, you think? Diddy? Okay. You want a cheeseburger? Okay. All right. So I mean, I don't know what else they're going to tell us and Brian anyway, like you said, until tomorrow, we won't know much else anyway. So we'll see what they say on Diddy, because they're going to close court here shortly anyway. So
Guilty, and they don't all have to be one, right? He may be guilty of some of the 2 through 5 and not guilty on the others. But what's clear is that they have an agreement on counts 2 through 5, but that they are unable to reach an agreement on the first and probably what would be considered the most critical count of the indictment, and that is a charge of racketeering, for which, if found guilty,
yes.
Sean Diddy Combs faces up to life in prison for. So right now, the court is trying to decide what to do about it. There is indication that the defense for Mr. Combs does not want the partial verdict. They want the jury to go back and consider that first count fully. And given past experience, that might be what the judge wants too. He wants this done as one entire piece rather than breaking this up into several little pieces. Now, timing is important here. Friday is a national holiday. This court is usually out for July 4th. This is also a court, because it's a federal courthouse, that would usually be closed on Thursday too. The judge in this case has said to the jury, if you need Thursday, I will open it up to you. Now, that's the court's position on it. For those who have been jurors in this case for more than 2 months at this point, maybe they want to be done with it. So they would still have tomorrow if they want to continue working on count 1. But that's where it stands right now. We can talk about the nuances of that first count if you want to, Sharon. Up to you.
I want to ask you, Arthur, a little bit about what happened today. I saw that the juror had more questions. The jury wanted to know specifically about some of Cassie Ventura's testimony and some of the corroborating witnesses, some of whom testified that they heard violence against Diddy and Cassie Ventura, and that was
So Cassie Ventura was his longtime girlfriend. Um, the big one is count one, so I'm not sure if we'll get any kind of answers today from what it sounds like, but maybe.
part of the testimony. They seem to want to go over some of that, which could prove critical to how they make a decision today.
Right. So what that would indicate from the outside is on counts 4 and 5, which had to do with paying sex workers to cross state lines for prostitution. There are a lot of legal analysts, and also our own Lisa Evers has said that that part of the case seems pretty solid, right? Because there are receipts people got on flights. The other part really relates to how the jury would find Sean Diddy Combs guilty of racketeering if they do, in fact, find that. And in order to do that, they have to find 2 elements of a crime that feed racketeering. It includes bribery, it includes arson, it includes kidnapping, it also includes drug distribution. And that was one of the notes, if you remember, that the jury asked the judge for clarification on, and he said, follow the jury charge. We went over that jury charge paper and the last sentence, and it said, sale is not a required element in drug distribution, meaning a person didn't have to pay in order to get drugs, possibly from Mr. Combs himself or from one of the people working with him or working for him. And that seemed to favor the establishment of one of the 2 critical elements in order to find him guilty of racketeering. But obviously they don't agree on that right now.
Yeah. So, Arthur, let's just remind our viewers who might be just joining our live stream here from the Lower Manhattan studio that, Sean Combs, known as P. Diddy, facing 5 felony counts, 1 count of racketeering conspiracy, 2 counts of sex trafficking, 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, in a long and a trial where we learned a lot about this mogul and his personal lifestyle. And that, of course, was part of the defense, right? They were saying, well, you may not like what you heard about how he acted, but the defense argued all this was consensual as we listened to what unfolded over the last couple of weeks, right?
Right. They even went a step further. Was he a domestic violence? Did he commit domestic violence? Yes. That harrowing video from that Los Angeles hotel showed yes. Right. And they even said, right, his life is ugly, but is it a federal crime? They did not argue that there were certain facts in this case. It was just a perspective. And they did not call a single witness, including Mr. Combs. All the witnesses in this case, about 3 dozen of them, were entirely called by the prosecution.
What do you think about that? That he didn't call any witnesses on his behalf and they were all just called by the prosecution. I mean,
Interesting. That's an interesting point, because then I'm assuming most of the crossing was just between the defense and state witnesses, and that was it.
yeah. So, I mean, it's an interesting way to try to run your trial or, defend your client.
I was gonna. Well, I didn't mean to laugh. I just maybe because of dark humor, but I was just thinking like what the reporter was saying. Oh, my client beat a woman, but that's not a federal crime. I
Yeah.
don't know. I just thought it was so stupid. That's my dark humor making me laugh. But I was
Right.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's so stupid.
It
I'm
is
sorry.
though. Like, yeah, maybe he's guilty of domestic violence and doing things that you don't like, but he's not guilty of all these other things. Like, stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I always thought, like I said, it's a dark humor thing. Like when you're defending your client, it's like my client might be guilty, but look at him. We all have done something similar. It's like what?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it seems like that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was the approach, which is we don't disagree. It's about whether or not this was a federal crime.
And let's talk a little bit about the prosecution and what they laid out over the course of weeks and all of those witnesses. Of course, their key witness, so unique, Cassie Ventura, they wanted to get her on the stand because she was about to give birth to a baby. And she, of course, was central to this. And the woman, of course, seen in that video over and over again. Let's talk a little bit about the prosecution's case.
The prosecution's case was that Sean Diddy Combs used his power and influence in order to create this one-man racketeering operation.
It wasn't one man. It was all of Bad Boy Industries. I'm
With
gonna
them, they were not.
bring it back live, but I don't think we're going to get a verdict.
not children. They were not, except for at least one, they were not young. They were adults. They were full-on adults, but they still made the decision to stick with him. And how that weighs on the jury's decision, we look at it: 8 men, 4 women, most of the women professional or careers. How will they view the fact that these women stayed in that orbit? That's a key here, we think.
All right, Arthur, thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up there for you now and keep it right here because we'll give you updates as soon as they become available.
All right.
Well, I think federal court's about to close. I'll be surprised if there's
So
a
we're going to get to Lisa
verdict
Evers, as you
reached.
heard Arthur
Yeah.
say, in just a second here. As soon as we change out the cameras, we're taking a live look at Lower Manhattan, where you can see it's been raining out there. There's a lot of people.
Okay. In other news, before we close out for the day, I think someone told me that Jimmy Swaggart died, and Jimmy Swaggart was an American Pentecostal televangelist and gospel music artist. Swaggart was one of the most well-known televangelists in America during the 1980s. He died today at age 90.
Oh, that's the one. Was that the one that was the gay sex scandal thing, or there was so many of these guys back in the 90s and 80s that were having scandals?
Yeah, there's some kind of sex scandal because it was talking about how he apologized for a sex scandal.
God made me do it.
Yeah. I just can't with all of that. I'm going to be very careful, but there's one of his records. Featuring Jimmy Swaggart and his golden gospel piano. Like, that
Oh
tells me
boy. Yeah. That
what I
explains a
need to
lot.
know.
Yeah.
And today, as we've talked about, is Canada Day. So let's talk about Canada Day. So Canada Day, happy Canada Day. It is July 1st. Now let's see what it is. The history of Canada Day. Canada Day is a day to reflect on what it means to be Canadian, to share what makes us proud, and to celebrate in our own way. This pride is reflected in as many ways as there are Canadians. Canada Day highlights the richness of our land, our diversity, our culture, our contributions, but above all, our people. Since 1868, July 1st is an opportunity for Canadians from all communities to come together. July 1st, 1868, the British North American Act, known as the Constitution Act of 1867, creates Canada. June 20th of 1868, Governor General Lord Monck signs a proclamation that requires all Her Majesty's subjects across Canada to celebrate July 1st. In 1879, a federal law makes July 1st a statutory holiday as the anniversary of Confederation, which is later called Dominion Day. And October 27th, 1982, July 1st, Dominion Day officially becomes Canada Day. So it's basically your July 4th for us, which is going to be Friday, if I'm understanding correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to be debating about terrorist? No, we're not.
No, that's going to be a lot for a lot of us. That's
Yeah.
going to be like a big brain boy girl kind of stuff. It's like, oh boy.
Mercedes said, and since we all come from a woman, got our name from a woman, and our game from a woman, I wonder why we all take from our women and why. I don't know. Tupac says hi. Hi, Tupac. I don't know. That's
Good
horrible.
point.
1967. I wanted to see if there was one that said 1967. I did say 1967, meaning 1867. I apologize for that. July 1st of 1917 was the 50th anniversary, the 60th anniversary. So that tells us July 1st, 1967 was the 100th anniversary. So happy Independence Day to Canada. And I hope that y'all have a wonderful Canada Day.
Yeah. Enjoy your special day, our fellow Canadian brothers and sisters.
Yes. Thank you, Bazard, for coming up and talking with me today. I think that you helped me understand a lot more about the Brian Kohburger case than I knew. So I really appreciate you coming up and helping with that. And your insight was very
Thank you.
helpful.
Appreciate
Yeah.
that. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was like the Brian Kohberger case. I was a little bit like you. Like I kind of paid attention here and there. I would say only really this year, beginning of this year, I started paying attention a little bit more of it because more trial related stuff was going on or
Mhm.
pre-trial stuff. But I personally still think there's something more to this case, and maybe we'll know by tomorrow. But if anything, with this case has shown, this probably be another big shocker, and we'll just have to see how things play out. But glad to be
Yeah.
on and chit chat with you, and see everyone else in the chat. Just have a good time as we usually do.
Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate it. I enjoyed talking about it with you guys, and learning more about the case.
So I would definitely be. I would see. I should be able to pop on by tomorrow's panel if Stern thing's going to happen. If it does, go through or not. So I would definitely see if I can pop on and we can chat about that
Yeah.
shenanigan over there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping that they rule on the suppression here in evidence. I don't know if it's going to be on that or the motion to continue. Maybe both. That would be cool because I
I
want to
have a
know what
I have a feeling it could be probably both of them, and then we'll see what the judge. I can't remember the judge name on this one too. We'll see if
Karsten. Yep.
okay. We'll see if they decide on that.
Yep.
But hopefully, in that situation, they just accept the process that the police did, the way to get the information. I mean, the evidence, and then just go from there. So let's please cross our fingers that he decides that Stern's whining about, oh, my rights were broken, are just bullshit, which they are.
Oh yeah. Absolute bullshit.
But I will head off, but I hope you have a wonderful afternoon with the family and kiddos, and everyone else have a great day and take care.
Yeah, thank you. You too, sweetheart. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out today. I appreciate y'all being here and talking about this case with me and the stunning news that he took a plea deal. And I appreciate all of you guys' input, thoughts, opinions, and speculations. All the information that you guys gave us. You just being here, hanging out, talking about green bologna sandwiches. Tom said they're probably fumigating Stephen Stearns at this very moment to get all the stank off him for court. Probably got him isolated and are just spraying him with a fire hose or something. Yes, thank you, Bazard. I appreciate you coming up, and I really do. That was some good insight. I learned a lot about the case and a lot about the reason they may be doing this. The prosecution's possible motives, the defense's possible motives, how the family, their possible motives. So I felt like it was very informative, and I really appreciate it and enjoyed it. That's so sweet. Also, happy Canada Day again to everybody. I hope you have a lovely day. I will be back. I will see y'all tomorrow. Stearns will be in court because, as I said at the beginning of this stream, when I saw they changed it to July 2nd, I called the damn news station and I said, look, yesterday it said on the court website that Stearns was due in court today at 1:30. Are y'all going there today? And they said, no, the only thing we have for Stearns is going to be tomorrow at 1:30. And that's when I was like, okay, perfect. Thank you. So I wasn't playing no games. I was like, these lawyers might be lying. And so I need to know when the news is going to be there. So definitely tomorrow. I will see y'all tomorrow with that information. Thank you again, Bazard. Bazard did do a great job. And thank you. Nice to hear your voice. Yes. Thank you, guys. Aw, I want to go to Scotland. All right, y'all. If nobody has told you, you are enough, you are important, you are special, and you are loved. And I will see y'all tomorrow. Thank you so much. Bye.
Listen up, I gotta tell you.
Oh, hold on. I lost you. My leg hit the mouse.
you.